People want to make money and have a sense of personal freedom. At level 1, when you're making $0 and you're scared to put yourself online, what's the most important thing to keep in mind, and why should you get started?
I think one thing that's probably been one of the most core skills I've had over the last 18 years building businesses is just being okay with shipping stuff when it's incredibly embarrassing, right? You know, my personal brand now, sure, it's at 3 million, all that, and people can look at where I am now with certain shit. Oh my Lord, when I first got started, it was some of the most embarrassing shit ever.
Yeah.
In fact, it's probably so embarrassing that 99% of people watching this would say, I would never have posted it. And it's like, well, that's exactly it, right? I did just post it when it was super imperfect, and then just started kind of getting on that train of iterating and getting a little bit better and getting a little more comfortable on camera, getting a little bit better at writing, getting a little better at cinematography or the equipment or building a team around me. But it was just because I got on that train and got going, right? That kind of like creator level 1, right? That allowed me to then get to the other levels now that we're at, having now done this for, almost 5 years.
There was a point when you didn't think that personal branding was a requirement to that level of freedom.
Right.
What was that pivot point that you said, okay, I'm now a business owner, but this is the thing that's going to unlock everything else for me?
As you learn, as you're building things, right? There's this quote that I've always believed in, which is, first time founders focus on tech, second time founders focus on distribution, right? It's distribution that's the real thing. You can go and build something amazing in a dark room and send it to your one person that's following you on X. That ain't going to grow a business, right? That's an expensive hobby, right? On the other side, like suddenly you have distribution, right? And everything can change. Now let's get more tactical in terms of, okay, cool. What platforms do I get going on? Well, first things first, I think it's platform, okay? One thing at a time, less is more. The first thing to understand is that the best content strategy is the one that you can stick with. And the best platform to get going on from my perspective is that there's kind of a bifurcation, right? It goes, okay, are you more comfortable writing or on video, right? If it's writing, you're going to get going on X or LinkedIn. If it's video, you're going to go on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. So we got that piece down. Now you've gone and you've picked a direction, right? Let's say you go to YouTube, right? Okay, so you're going on YouTube. How do you start getting going on this, right? On the mindset side, whether it's me or every single successful personal brand, whether it's Hormozi, Cody Sanchez, Gary Vee, when I've spoken with any of these individuals, one of the things that we all possess, right, is long-term thinking, right? It's not about going and making 100 grand the first year. It's not about hitting 100,000 followers or subscribers in the first 3 months. It's just getting going, making great stuff that you're proud of initially, right? So how do you do that tactically? So on YouTube, right? Maybe you pick a content distribution strategy where you're just publishing a video every other week, right? Your focus there, number one, should be just developing the shipping muscle, right? The same way that if you're a little overweight and you're trying to maybe lose weight and you start going to the gym, I would encourage someone just to focus on opening the door at the gym. Like just walk through the damn door. Because from there, you do a little bit of weights, maybe you do the treadmill for 10 minutes, get out of there. That's all good. Just start building the habit of driving to the gym and going through the door, right? Same thing here would be my perspective with YouTube, right? Take the lowest minimum kind of viable action. And so in that case, just publish the video every other week and do that for 3 months. Don't obsess around the quality. Don't worry if it bombs. Don't worry if it gets 92 views. It doesn't matter, right? So now you're getting more comfortable with sharing yourself. You're getting more comfortable putting it out there. Learning by doing versus learning by reading a bunch of books or overanalyzing shit or just watching more YouTube videos. And so at this point now you're in the game, right? You're in the arena versus being a spectator. And so the math is simple on that too, right? You get 10% better over 100 videos, right? You're 13,800 times better by that 100th video. Let's just learn from the goats here for a second, right? Take Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast was on an interview with Joe Rogan. Rogan goes in and asks him like, kind of, how do you think about this? How do you do all this? And he's like, honestly, if someone comes to me and asks, how do I grow on YouTube? He's like, I just tell them, first things first, just go make 100 videos, right? And I think there's a story, I think Mr. Beast, it took him 1,000 videos to get to his first 1,000 subs.
Yeah.
So there's no shortcut for just doing the work, right? And I think that that's level one. From there, doesn't matter what direction you go, you want to make sure that you also at least set up a newsletter, right? the big thing we're trying to do here is not just build a brand online and grow on these platforms, because you don't own these platforms, right? You're not Zuck, you're not Musk, right? You need to make sure that you actually own your media, right? Because, you can go and create a video on YouTube. It's going to be shown to maybe 3% of your subscribers. But you go and you send an email to 100,000 people, say on your email list eventually, it goes to every 100,000 person's inbox, right? That's the difference between controlling your distribution or renting that distribution from one of these platforms, right? Not to mention the platform risk if anything were to get dicey. For me, my journey to building my personal brand actually started with a journey through sobriety. I had been drinking, using some substances for some time, and eventually discovered writing by just pen and paper as a useful exercise for a more constructive habit that I could replace drinking with. It came from the inspiration from a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She has this exercise where you go and you answer these different prompts every single morning. And I did this for about 100 days straight. And it was throughout that journey that I was then kind of just inspired and now also off substances and able just to think more clearly. And I was just curious about then starting to kind of share some of these thoughts that I had been writing down on Twitter at the time. And so I messily just started putting them up there. Some of them were interesting. Some of them were just horrible. Probably most of them were horrible. But through that process, I started becoming more comfortable with just this idea of sharing myself. It's almost like a muscle in a way, At first, you're like shaking in your boots and wondering what people are going to think. And then you start to get a little more comfortable with it. And I wasn't really tipped off to the personal branding thing yet. It just wasn't in my awareness as much. And then in this moment, I was like, okay, you're doing this. You have a couple ways you can go. You can stop doing it. You can just be like a tinkerer, right? Or you can be like, let's like actually do this thing. And I kind of applied like the regret minimization framework to it, thinking like, okay, so you're 85. And in this decision right now, like you can either, do A, B, or C, right? Let's think about B. B is that you just keep tinkering. It's like, yeah, I could totally see myself being 85 years old and just regretting that I had this opportunity. I was good at writing. I knew what I was doing. I'd done this for Herb and grown it to 14 million. Why didn't I take that skill more seriously? Because I totally could do it. And so even though C, which was, really going hardcore with really building this out, taking it seriously, viewing it as like a real skill in developing the full stack of, skills that'd be necessary to do it well, it felt like just the obvious choice, even though it was a bit scary, even though people will say, oh, you're just trying to become famous, or, you're just trying to get attention, or who knows what, right? All the limiting beliefs and noise you hear from the crowd. I decided in that moment that I was just going to go all in, full tilt.
I do think there's a lot of business owners that want to do it for the visibility. Is that a bad thing?
When I'm thinking about building a personal brand, right? It's not that I'm trying to do it to make money. Or that I'm trying to do it to grow more leverage, or that I'm trying to do it to attract top talent to my companies, or that I'm trying to do it to open up serendipity, or maybe just luck. I'm actually doing it for all of these reasons, right? And I think for other founders, yeah, maybe there's an aspect of a little bit of ego in it, a little bit of status, a little bit of cash flow, opening up some doors, and top talent. And I just think it's like, it just is what it is. Like, great. That's what motivates you. Like, awesome. There's no right or wrong motivation within reason, right? Just like, that's the reality of it. For me, at least, in terms of like some of the criteria I just mentioned and what it helps me with, I've seen my personal brand go and attract probably 95% of the people in my team, a team of, 25 people at Founder OS, and a team of 30 people at Herb. I've seen my personal brand go and drive me, probably $15 million easily over the last couple of years. I've seen it go and open tons of serendipitous doors, right? Whether it's, then being able to sit down with Hormozy, or opening, up doors with other legends that I've met, dinners I'm even having here, even maybe this, right? And other things. And then along the way too, just being able to scale up more and more to then help me build a portfolio of companies now that's doing, north of 15 million a year.
You established authority frame by appropriately using other people's authority frame and then launching your own, where every person that came into interaction with that one video, they looked back and they said, oh, this person's talked to Dan Coe. Oh, this person just had an interview with Dan Martell. Oh, this person is talking to Layla. I found that the blend of creativity that you did, both in using the podcast initially to launch yourself and interviewing the people that you interviewed, and then the intentional choice to say, I'm going to make my own content and I'm going to create my own moat. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I haven't seen a single founder try to start a personal brand on YouTube, especially, that's come close to mimicking that. Do you think that it's better to go on a long form platform, or is it better to kind of think about like, I'm just going to put myself up on TikTok, Instagram, or something like that so that I can get more reps in? So it feels less like the idea of publishing on those platforms feels less monumental than publishing a YouTube video.
Yeah, so there's two ways to think about that. I want to do one that's super transparent on my side, and then the other one that is like a framework for thinking about it. So number one, to be transparent, I drive about 60% of my leads from YouTube, about 20% from LinkedIn, another 10% from Instagram, 5% from X, and then the rest, okay? Yeah. So that's actually where I drive leads to my businesses, okay, to be transparent. So am I saying that you should focus on YouTube? No, not necessarily, but I do think that YouTube is a hell of a powerful platform that people should be paying a lot of attention to. But a way that people should think about it, that I think they can apply no matter what industry or level that they're at, is as follows. It's like 3 concentric circles, okay? You have one that's, first off, what do you love to do? Okay? So do you have this like desire and are you excited to make long form videos on YouTube? That's a great data point, right? Do you love to write long form Substack articles? Okay, awesome. That's a great data point. So understand that for a sec. Next piece is, where are my customers, right? Because we're talking about building a profitable personal brand here over time. And it's not just profits to stack your pockets, right? It's profits so you can build a team, build leverage, like actually make shit without it just all relying on you, hiring a video editor, hiring a social writer, whatever you need, a social manager to help you out, right? And so that matters, right? Because if your customers are on Facebook, but you're making on TikTok, like there's maybe going to be a disconnect and you'll have a lot of fun, but you won't make much money.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is like, what are you great at, right? Understanding that too, right?
Because at the starting point, we're not great at much. Like, I mean, I guess there's some people that probably might be naturally charismatic.
And there's some people that just like, even though they don't write a lot, like they are actually good writers.
Yeah.
Right. And they're more comfortable there.
Yeah.
Right. Or there's people that, you know, when they think of YouTube, even if that, like they crumble. They're like, yes, there's just no way. And yeah, for those people, I don't think it's about like, you've got to overcome this. Like maybe, but maybe not, you know? Like I think that my own philosophy on life is like, you learn this in the book Strengths Finder, right? It's like, I think that you generate the most returns in life by trying to lean into your strengths more than you are like trying to fix weaknesses in your life. So I kind of approach most things from that angle.
Yeah, I like that a lot. When you say something that's actually striking me is, it's really interesting you say this. You're saying newsletter is by far the most valuable and everything needs to direct to that. That might sound overwhelming as well. Do you have any advice on starting a newsletter, especially if you're thinking about starting from scratch?
Yeah, well, I think at level 1, right, I'm just talking about starting a newsletter, like just literally send subscribers to a newsletter. Like you don't even need to really publish that much if you don't want to. At least you have that kind of generating in the background, right? Yes. So when you get more comfortable, you started to kind of feel like you got your sea legs come day 90, you've just published consistently at this point, like keep it dead simple. The only project you have to do is for 90 days, publish consistently at your cadence. So if that's every other week again on YouTube, just do that. And then the newsletter is just at least getting built up so that you can start to kind of play with that later. And hopefully by the time you play with it, there's 1,000 subs or 2,000 subs.
Just have a link that people can sign up with, essentially. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether it's a link on Kit, HubSpot, Kajabi, doesn't matter. Just a link.
Yeah. That's so funny. I've delayed on that because the thought process of a newsletter as a different medium sounds overwhelming to me. Because I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm already investing so much energy on this. So I think I
think you should be using it as just another distribution platform for the pod, right?
Yeah.
So you release your pod every Tuesday, and on Wednesday you send a newsletter. Hey, everyone, had a great conversation with whatever. The one lesson that stuck out to me was this. Here's the video.
I think a lot of people overthink when they're even just getting started. The idea of I have to understand what my personal brand is. I know you're saying the tactical, which is the truth. Hey, just publish the videos. Hey, put reps in. You don't have to know what the reps are about or how good they are. You don't have to put any steroids on it. Just get the reps in. I think a lot of people get stuck on like, I need to figure out what I represent and what I'm supposed to talk about and what my brand actually is. And they're thinking about brand identity because that's what they're being told or that's what they're seeing from other big personal brands, when that's actually the tactical thing. So what would you say to those people that are overthinking the bigger picture and not just being like, hey, you got to suck for a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we want to get tactical there, like, and again, I'm always careful at this level to go too far because I think it quickly leads to like, oh, well, then I got to wait, or, oh, then I got to overthink this. And so if anyone's watching this and they're looking to get started, like, either take this and run with it or just leave it aside and just go make something,
Okay.
right? So here we go. One thing to consider is to go and come up with kind of like 3 content pillars,
Yeah.
right? So just, if you're a dog walking business, right? It may be the best routes in New York City for walking your dog. It may be, wellness tactics as a dog owner. And it may be, best products for your dog, let's just say, right? And so when you think about, say, this YouTube content strategy, right? Over 3 months, you're going to make a video every other week. So it's 6 videos total. So you're going to make 2, 2, 2, right? On each of those different pillars. And then, when you want to then come up with ideas, just think about whether it's best practices, how-tos, buyer guides, recipes, whatever it may be. Just think about the kind of stuff that you would want to see in that market and just keep it simple initially, right? But inevitably, I think people sometimes get too caught up too fast on the like branding and the look and all that. Inevitably, the real thing is like your brand is the way you make people feel, right? A lot of it, right? And it's also oftentimes how I see it as well is like people are going to start associating you with the kind of things you talk about, right? And so what matters when you're growing a personal brand is like, okay, well, what's each piece of content that you're putting out then? Because it's not some pithy thing that exists in a brand guidelines behind the scenes that you and your team are super stoked by because you paid a branding firm 10 grand.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah.
What matters is then, on Tuesday, you shipped this video that was this way. And most importantly, delivered this value and this storytelling. That's what people are going to associate you with, right?
Yeah.
So just focus on the content itself, right?
And make the content personal. Is that the idea? Is like, do you want to add that element? Do you recommend from the get-go basing it off of you as an individual? Or do you recommend from the get-go thinking, okay, this has to make money?
I think a lot of people focus too much on the branding, but not on the personal part of personal branding.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like not forgetting that, you have an origin story to what you're building. You have challenges you've overcome along the way. There's lessons you've learned from struggles or from weird things in your childhood, like opening up around some of this stuff. And I think that vulnerability and getting personal, though, can be really pithy, the same way like authenticity is just a loaded word, right? And so I think the way to get going there is just even to think about kind of 10 core stories that you think kind of define you as a human, right? And not being afraid with any given topic maybe you share to also just like pair it with a story of where you maybe learned that lesson originally.
Yes.
So that it's not just you saying, you need to be consistent, right? It's instead, hey, like when I was first getting going in university, I actually nearly flunked out and was kicked out of the university. It's like, oh shit, like crazy.
Yeah.
And now you've got my attention.
The objection that I hear from a lot of people is, what do I talk about? And I think what you just highlighted, both in talk about your story and notice what you watch, those are 2 key elements of being like, hey, you enjoyed this. How would you spin this? Now there's strategies to that we can get into later, but like, how would you spin it? Or what inspired you about it? And can you resonate and communicate a similar story with that same sentiment? And I think hopefully that comes through in what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was the context on the background? What were the actions you take? What were the result of those actions? And then what did you learn from it all?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's okay to have 0 views. It's okay. Like the affirmation doesn't need to come. I think I'm a very like affirmation needing person to be like, I'm going to put a lot of effort into it if I can get something on the back end. And I appreciate that you're saying, no, this is the muscle. This is the skill set of just like getting started.
And I was like that in my 20s. I used to be super outcome driven to the point of like almost like just wanting to end it all. It was like such a bad habit. I wasn't happy until I sold my company for over $50 million. I wasn't happy until I got a certain amount of like growth in my business, right? It was all outcome driven to the point of like nearly killing me. What I started to do was like, okay, I'm like, this is not sustainable anymore. I was like, And I know that when I started to build my personal brand, I was like, no, we're taking a completely different approach here. I'm just going to focus on the craftsmanship behind this, right? I'm going to focus on the mastery, and I'm going to focus on the reps, not the growth. Like if any metric, it's just the reps.
Yeah.
And I remember doing it as an example on YouTube, right? Getting going, being like, I'm just going to make 100 videos that I'm proud of, right? And sure enough, we just passed 100 videos, I think 2 years into the journey, and we have 250,000 subs, right? But it wasn't a quest to get these subs. It was the quest to just make really great shit. I think from my own data and from the data from like 18,000 founders that we've helped inside of Founder OS, one thing I've seen that I don't think a lot of people talk about is, about 64% of the founders, once they've bought something from me, we go and send a quick kind of thank you screen that says, what made you want to purchase this thing? And 64% of people will say something of the kind of vibe of, it's your energy, Matt, right? It's your vibe. And so when we think about this whole kind of the personal part of personal branding, right? It's not this value you have to give or what you're going to say, because likely, if we're being real, people hear the same shit all the time, right? And it's not like any of us really are sharing anything totally new, right? Like this shit exists in books. There's YouTube is abundant. ChatGPT is a beast. Claude's even better, whatever, right? And so it's out there. The question then is like, who is the human behind it, right? And what's their story? And do you trust this person? Is it someone you can resonate with? Do you see yourself in them in some way? Do you aspire to be where they are? Who knows what, right? But it's that energy you put in it, and more importantly, it's like that emotional resonance you build, right? Because people can, you can almost like sense like the second you're like 10 seconds into a conversation, like, is this person honest? Are they real? Do they have integrity? Or is this a bullshitter and whatever? And the same thing goes with content. The same two people can say the same thing. One, you're like, wow, what does this guy have going on? And the next person, you're like, stay the hell away from that shit. My thing with systems, it's not that I'm into systems. To me, I'm into, just got back from Japan a few weeks ago, snowboarding there with some friends. And I was planning on just going for like 5 days to a week, ended up kind of just vanishing for 3 weeks. That's kind of how I want to live my life, right? I think that all of us as founders get into business to have freedom, right? And freedom to me is the optionality to just do whatever you want, right? To work with whoever you want to work with, to work wherever you want to work, on whatever you want to work on, whenever you want to do it, right? Whether that's, on a weekend or during the week or take a few weeks off, like you should be able to choose these things. And that optionality, that ability to choose versus having someone else tell you what to do, I think is the ultimate freedom. And so how do you get that freedom as a founder is the question, because you get and you set out to go and achieve it, but then you realize after building businesses that it ain't that easy, right? And so my quest to find systems to make organic content more simple, my quest to make systems to make hiring, onboarding, and retaining top talent more simple, my systems to go and build a profitable, cash flowing company that helps me hit not just my business goals, but my own lifestyle goals and my savings goals and the kind of things I want to go and make sure I'm achieving just as a human, right? The systems are just a necessary thing to get me to that freedom. So that's kind of how I look at it. The systems were just a requirement to get to the freedom I'm looking to get to.
Before we keep going, I want to show you a little behind the scenes of what goes into making this podcast. So I travel all around the country and I bring all of these cameras. I book studio spaces. Right here, this is an FX3 and this is 85 millimeter Sigma lens. We have some FX30s and a combination of Sigmas and G Masters. And I fly all around the country and I book production spaces and set it up so that I can have this really awesome conversation with someone for 2.5 hours. Then afterwards, we spend over 100 hours editing that podcast. But if you're looking to get started in content, you don't have to go through that same hard process. You see, Riverside does all of this within the comfort of your browser. All you have to do is send a link to your guest, and both of you can record 4K footage that can then be edited within their software. Even if you don't have any editing experience whatsoever, it still is extremely easy to use because you can do it based off the transcript. And they make clips for you that are really solid, and they make medium form content for you, and then they can give you like newsletter content. It is
bonkers. All of this done within their platform, and then you can distribute their podcast and host it and push it to all the other platforms literally just within Riverside. So maybe one day you do want to go through the process of buying $30,000 worth of cameras and traveling around with all this gear. But if you don't, just go to riverside.com and use code GRANT and you'll get 1 month of the Grow Plan. I'm so grateful to have Riverside as a partner in this because they do make all of this possible, and I'm so glad that you are watching. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, it would go a long way in supporting this podcast. I put so much effort into this, and I'm not going to stop because I want to make it worth your time. Thank you for being here. So now let's get back to the episode.
I think that's a great transition point. So I want to talk about level 2. At level 2, the goal is to make $20,000 in your personal brand. We've covered the just getting started. Hey, this is the energy you have to have. Appreciate the reps. How do you make the decisions, and what data points are you looking at to say, this is what I'm going to do to actually monetize this?
So you started to grow some remnants of an audience. You're feeling better and you're flexing these muscles and you're getting more jacked as a creator. You're now sharing online and feeling more confident, which is awesome. And you've also made a pact with yourself that you were going to ship for 3 months, and you did it, right? So you're feeling good. And now you're like, damn, I want to start monetizing this because I want this to really make sense for the time I'm investing in it, which makes sense, right? Because you're not just looking to do a hobby here, right? You want to build a business, right? And so let's get into that. So when you're going and starting a business, right? One thing that I've always reminded myself of is that product market fit is 15 customers, 15, right? 15.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, at least. Okay.
Yeah. Give me some information.
This is information that I was told by my brother years ago, who's a successful product manager, now like a chief product officer. And, it's just this idea that like, if you can just get 15 people to buy a thing from you, right? Like that's product market fit. Because then you get that thing going, you learn more from it, you iterate on it, and you can sell more of it, right? And so this idea of like building a business, I like to think of it as like, let's just dial it right back, right? Let's keep things insanely simple. Can we just get 15 paying customers on something, right? Product, service, agency, mastermind, course, digital product, SaaS product, doesn't matter, right? 15. Okay. So then the question becomes, okay, how do you get your first 15 customers, right? I think that inevitably I think it's a bit of, having a spidey sense for, what is your audience kind of enjoying from you? Maybe you found that you published a piece of content around your focus routine every morning and people were like, whoa, this is really cool. And you're like, like maybe there's something there. Like I like that kind of stuff. I like helping people with that. And my audience is really into it. And then, on the other side too, you look at the market. I'm also big on early on understanding your references, right? Because again, nothing is new, right? So understand, maybe you want to do a focus course, let's just say. Well, look at other courses that have existed as an example and what's working. What's a reference you can find of a course in this example that has gotten to $5 million a year, $10 million a year? What are their landing pages, their VSLs, their emails? What does it look like, right? And then that's another kind of piece of it. I think the third piece, and this is something that took me 12 years to learn, but I would tell someone getting started to still think about this to save them a ton of headaches, is I think it's also helpful to view yourself in this one frame as an investor more than an entrepreneur. And the example here is to come up with your criteria by which you're going to go and build this next thing. So my criteria as an example are, it must take me 3 months or less to build. I don't want to be building some SaaS product for 2 years. I must be able to get this business to $5 million a year. I must love the product. I must love the customer. It must have founder distribution fit. I must own 97% of the business. I don't want co-founders. And it must feel like play, and it must be an obvious move for me. So that obvious one to me just means I'm going to do something that, like, to me, it's like obviously going to work with who I am and what I do and my skills. Like, it's not some insane stretch. Again, this idea of like, I'm not going to look to play to my weaknesses. I want to play to my strengths. So I now have my criteria. I kind of know what my audience wants. And I'm seeing other references as the things I may want to build that are successful. And from there, I think it's cobbling something together, right? Cobbling some ideas together initially. And then what I like to do is then go and score them based on those criteria. So now I've literally got a Google Sheet out. In the rows, I've got all my criteria, right? In your case, you should make your own, but maybe steal mine if you want them. And then in the columns, you'd have every different business idea you're thinking about. And then literally score them 1 to 10 based on your criteria, right? So if for me, something's like, wow, that surely is going to make over 5 million a year, it would get a 10, right? It's the max of that criteria. And if it has no chance of doing that, it's a 1. So inevitably, then you can go through, say, 10 criteria across each idea that you've come up with and brainstormed over a couple of weeks, let's say, and start to see also objectively, based on the scores, which one had the highest score, right? It doesn't mean that that's the one you have to do, but at least now it's providing you with some sort of lens by which to go, okay, shit. And maybe you end up picking the second one on the list, right? But you're like, okay, it's not good though because I don't love that customer. I'm going to adjust the customer a bit so I actually enjoy it more, let's just say. So now you've got your criteria done. You've got an idea that you're ready to go with. And now I think it's giving yourself a deadline as to which to ship the first version of it, right? Many businesses can simply just be a Google Doc to start with, right? And then going and getting on 50, 100 calls, right? And just talking to people about this and seeing if there's an appetite to actually buy it. Now, I don't see these as calls where you're just interviewing people and see what they think. It's actually trying to sell it, right? And then the question is, people are going, oh, well, how do I book 100 calls? In any single business I've ever operated, the first batch of customers, for the most part, have come from just emailing people, right?
Like cold.
Yeah. People are soft.
Yeah.
Right? People are soft. And I've always, looked at life as just a numbers game, right? The more people I email, even if I convert 0.1% of people, that just means that, okay, 1 in 1,000 people I message, I'll get a customer.
Yeah.
Right? And I'll take those odds any day early on. If I had no experience, nothing going on, and you're just telling me, okay, I could sell this $5,000 thing if I email 1,000 people, sure. We'll take those odds initially, right? Like it'll get better over time, but that's what it takes maybe just to get the damn thing going.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously your inbound, leads from your organic content and all that will also go, right? You're going to put it out to your personal brand. You're going to see if anyone's interested. And that's also going to drive some of these calls, right? But it's kind of two pistons of an engine, right? A little bit of outbound on your side, a little bit of elbow grease, and then a little bit of inbound from the audience you're now building. And that's how you're going to drive your initial product market fit to this idea. And hey, you may even start an idea and people aren't interested in that thing. No worries. It's not a pivot. It's an evolution. And it just means, the first one didn't work, but you probably learned something from it.
Yeah.
Move on to the next one and move on to it gracefully and smoothly and just keep going.
Yes.
In any business I've started, it's been the product of either 3 significant iterations to get to it, even up to like 10. Right? Like Founder OS and the genesis of it as an example, I think initially I was looking to build an AI, real estate lead gen thing or something like that. Then I was like, maybe wealth managers.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and then randomly got to what I'm now doing. Right? So it's being okay with that non-linear nature of building a business.
Yeah. When you initially set up for your brand, was monetization intentionally a part of it? So like, for example, you were creating content on Twitter and you're saying, okay, I'm going to start on YouTube. I'm going to do these reps. How fast was it that the concepts, even from a loose structure of Founder OS, entered your mind?
4 months, maybe. And initially, again, everything, it all looks like perfect and linear looking back. But the reality was it was very just organic and kind of, just felt right in the moment, right?
Yeah.
So initially, I actually started something called Soulful Entrepreneur. I opened up like a cohort-based kind of thing, right? And we got around 18 sales of this, at $500. And I ran 6 weeks, 1 time per week. It was on a Zoom. There was like these beautiful decks and exercises I had created for it. And then I gave everyone my phone number and we could collab during it, which also gave me a sense to know what these people like. And I would interview them after every single week and ask, what did you like best? And what could I improve? Alex Lieberman, the founder of Morning Brew, he was, advising me every other week. And I had shown him the data. I'd run a couple of these. I asked his thoughts on some things. He's like, Matt, I got to be honest with you. I was like, please, like, hit me. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just down to learn. And I love people who are brutally honest. And he's like, Soulful Entrepreneur sounds like a yoga studio. And I was like, okay, whoa, I didn't ask for you to be that honest. No, I was kidding. And so basically then I was like, okay, he's like, dude, you should stop the woo-woo shit and you should lean more into systems. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I like systems. That's good.
That's
like,
a good friend.
I could go any direction with this,
Yeah.
It didn't matter. It was all in my ikigai. It was all in my calling. It was all stuff I enjoyed. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to give that direction. And it wasn't that Alex was just right or something, right? It was that when he said it, it hit me in a way that I was like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds good to me. I like the focus of that, right?
Yeah.
So one side note is like, yeah, mentors will say their thing. Advisors, even on this podcast, people may learn a thing, right? Take what's good, ditch the rest, right? It's about curating what's right for you. Any business you're in is kind of like a software product, almost like iOS, right?
You're in beta.
Every now and then you get a shipped an update in your phone, right? And I think what people care most about as your customers, and I think it's useful as a founder to think like this, is that it's not where you start with them per se.
Yeah.
It's, can they feel that you care, and are you shipping constant updates based on their feedback? Because if you have rapid updates you're shipping, they're like, whoa, I wanted that. Whoa, I actually had asked for that. Oh, wow, he was really listening. That's going to really shape their thinking around your brand, your product, more than like you being perfect, let's say, out the gate, right? And
I don't want to get too far ahead of this. I think you talk about this better than anyone else I've ever heard. The concept of ikigai and how to identify what you're actually passionate about.
I was kind of circa, let's just say 9 years ago. It was Christmas Day and I was driving through Banff National Park in Alberta, Canada. And I was like looking at these beautiful mountains in the distance. I wasn't paying attention and I swerved into a ditch, basically, right? And it was a snowbank.
Wow.
And I'm stuck in this snowbank and I'm like, oh shit. And I'm trying to reverse out of it and I couldn't. The car is like almost elevated. And so I was like, oh man. And I'm basically stranded in like the middle of nowhere. I've been living the last like, a decade out of 2 suitcases. So I'm very minimalist. And so I had this random book in one of those suitcases called Ikigai. Ikigai is a Japanese concept that stands for your reason for being, right? Essentially like your calling in life, okay? The simplistic version of this is, it's kind of at the intersection of what you love to do, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're great at, right? The intersection of sort of those 4 quadrants is something that, is all of those things at once, right? And it hit me. And I was also just super bored because I'm stuck in this hotel. So I was like, all right, let's go through this. Let's like journal around this a bit. So for about an hour, I kind of took it out, drew 4 concentric circles with an area they overlap. And I just started journaling first off around what do I really love to do, right? Things like hike national parks. I love to help founders. I love to build communities and so on. And then I went over to what am I great at? People love my copywriting. They enjoy my designs. They like my help and honesty around sticky situations, whatever. What does the world need? And continued this for each of them, right? And then kind of took a step back and after really trying to just get everything out of me, right? I think it's good to actually write more than it is to try and write less. I kind of then was like, okay, what are some commonalities that are coming up here? And the commonalities that seemed to come up were writing, travel, viewing entrepreneurship as a soulful journey, helping founders with systems, building distribution from day one, building communities, and building teams of A players. And so I kind of then thought to myself, like, okay, going forward, I really would want to, build something and approach business as like, how can I just maximize my ikigai? Right? How can I always seek to, be the best at building communities, be the best at writing, be the best at assembling teams of A players in this sort of media company space? And so that's something I still revisit every single month. It's still in what I call my board meeting each month that I come back to. And I think it's a useful exercise for really discovering what your passion is, but not in some pithy way, actually kind of more, systematically kind of breaking it down.
There's some people that I imagine they feel like they don't have the freedom to care about those things because they feel bogged down by fear either fear of not making enough money or fear of what other people will think. How do you use that as a means of fuel to do these first two levels?
Understanding your why, right? And so if you know that you've got a real why behind this, and you've got a real sort of circle of things that you're really passionate about sharing more online, which may exist in your ikigai, it can provide, I think, that constant kind of like ever burning fire in your soul, right? That, through the weirdness, or, if someone says something weird about you online, or your parents are like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
You can be pretty confident knowing like, no, I know in myself why I'm doing this. I also think like in general with all these fears, I could say a lot about it, but if you think about any important moment in your life, right? You think about what you chose to go and take in university, let's say, or asking that date out to prom or whatever, right? There was always that nervousness, right? There was always that anxiety. And there was always those people that were saying things, right? So this is nothing new, right? If you look into the history of your life, this has come up many, 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 many times, right? And so I think it's reframing that nervousness, or reframing all of this in different ways, right? If you're feeling a bit nervous by it, it's actually just that you're excited to do it, right? If it's you're worried about what other people are going to think, it's just remembering that there's always been people saying shit, right? And let's just say with any brand online, doesn't matter who, there's always going to be haters, right? And I think that inevitably, when you really get into it, I think you actually want there to be more haters, right? Because you're trying to go and grow an audience. You're going to have some things maybe that you say that are slightly polarizing or opinionated. The only thing that's inevitable as you grow is that there will be these people that want to talk some shit, right? And I think that's just part of like the success tax when you go and build a personal brand.
I love that term. That's really helpful. As you think about monetization, I loved in the start of this conversation how you laid out the ability to do this. We got the getting started. We're identifying we want to make $20,000. We need product market fit for those 15 people. We're going through this process of identifying, okay, these are the things I want to do. This is the business that most aligns with the answers to these questions and that breakdown that you've had. There's some people that just say, hey, go make some money. It seems like you're saying, no, be intentional about what kind of money you make.
I think that when you're building a business, one of the things that doesn't get talked enough about online, and I think is one of the most important metrics, is longevity. Okay. Now, this depends on the kind of business you're trying to build. And it depends too, most importantly, on who you are as a founder, right? We all know those people online. I'm not really friends with any of these people, but like are looking just like make a quick buck and, build something for a year. I also know plenty of people that are looking to build something for 3 years and exit. That's never been my thing, right? My business Herb, I've been running that for 12 years now, right? I built my first business, Bitmaker, until we just got an irresistible offer and we sold it for a life-changing sum. When it comes to any business I'm building, right? Like Founder OS right now, I'm looking to build this thing till I die, right? And so when we think about building a business or building a personal brand, right? The number one thing that's going to stop you, right, is probably you just giving up at some point. And why would you give up, right? It gets too hard. You don't enjoy it. Maybe you're not making money from it. You're no longer passionate about it. There's a multitude of reasons that could come up, right? I think that one thing that helps is out the gate, right? Prioritizing longevity. So like, what would I want to do for the next 10 to 20 years? And when I think about that frame, right, that's what then leads me to, maybe there's this thing that I could do that would make me a lot of money or do this, but, I'm just going to end up doing it for a year and just hating my life. And so maybe I make more money doing that thing for the first like 12 months versus something I really like for the first 12 months. But there's the compounding nature of sticking with something and improving it. And I think the greatest returns in life, whether it's via relationships or business, come over the long term.
Yeah.
Right. In businesses I've operated, it's magical what you start accomplishing year 7, year 10, right? Stuff that you're like, wow, like I could have never imagined this was possible, right? Whereas I think, if you just focus on those kind of 1 year little experiments or, get rich quick kind of vibes, right? Like you're never tapping into that. So I'd like to focus on longevity out the gate. And hence that's why things like Ikigai and your criteria are important so that you're setting yourself up, because the average business, I think, takes about 7 years to sell.
Yeah.
And I think too many people focus too short term at the gate.
Yeah. And when we're talking about the idea of even just making $20,000, I like how you frame this, because I think a lot of times people reference that kind of number, and it's the thought process is like, oh, that's just enough for like an additional side income. Oh, that's a little side hustle. Oh, I'm going to test this little drop shipping thing, or I'm going to launch this little product, or I'll try this new wave. I'm going to do this AI agency kind of thing, because it's the wave, and because they're looking at the moniker of just, I just need to find a way to make $20,000. What I really appreciate about what you're saying is thinking through, even within that first amount of money, the longevity of it is, no, the goal is to make a lot of money doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just to make your first 20,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll just say too, like for whatever it's worth, like I don't really help anyone like that's just looking to get from 0 to 20K and chill.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's just like not my thing. I don't really ever meet those kind of people a ton.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is like, I don't resonate with it a lot. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's not who I am. So I could give a bunch of tips, but also like, I just don't resonate it with it much. So I don't have much to kind of get into there. What I do resonate with though is more what you were saying of like, I come from a place of abundance, right? Like I'm looking to, in my own life, like I want to, have amazing relationships, have amazing family, make a lot of money, build a badass team, help them make a lot of money. I want to serve people in the best way possible. I want to build an amazing community. I want it all, right? And I resonate with people that like want that too, right? So yes, like the longevity stuff I'm bringing up is like in the interest of like, getting to 20K, but like 50K and 100. And aside from that too, like more importantly, when you get to 200, 300, 400, as we may get to, it's like actually having an amazing life and amazing relationships and being proud of what you've built around you, not running some business that you're like, oh my God, I hate my life. Because I talk to plenty of people in that zone, right? Making 400K, 600K a month, right? And like people losing their minds, right? Being like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? How do I get myself out of this? Do I shut it down? Do I sell it? How do I fix this, right? And oftentimes, I think it's, when you're talking then to someone going from 0 to 20 or 20 beyond, right? It's like, hey, it's nice if you can have that wherewithal from the get-go and think through that a bit more versus just haphazardly kind of building something in a space you hate. Because I've done that too. I've built businesses that I didn't enjoy, and you end up paying the ultimate price.
One decision is escaping, because it could be like, oh, I just hate my corporate life so much that I'm just going to do this thing because it's something I think I can do. And I think a lot of people, I made that decision when I started my agency.
Yeah. And I'll just say too, right? Like, let's pause there. It's like right in there, right? It's like, okay, I'm trying to get out of this thing. How does it get to this, right? And that can be true. And I understand someone's mental state. I'm not kind of degrading that at all, right? But what I'm saying in my mental state and the one that I would want to work with more is like, yes, you want to leave the corporate thing, but why can't we leave the corporate thing and find something badass and have fun and make money and have the list of things you want checked off, and not maybe to the fullest degree initially. Maybe we got to make a quick buck there, but that's leading to this play and then this play that like when we weave them all together, like, oh, wow, we're excited around that vision.
Allow yourself to think it.
Yeah. Give yourself permission and make it more of a requirement as to how you think, right? Like there'll be plenty of people that I'm sure comment under this and go, oh, easy for him to say. Now he's made. It's like, no, right? This is something I've thought from the get-go. Right. And then I've made mistakes along the way, don't get me wrong, but I've been broke as fuck. Right. I had to build this all myself. And if you can work on stuff that feels like play to you, when other people are seeing you pull long hours because they're like, oh my God, that seems brutal. You're like, I'm having a great time. Right. And I think that's a mark of what you see with a lot of people that are really ultra successful is like, they just genuinely enjoy what they do.
How do you, at this level, help yourself feel like an investor? You were saying that mental pivot shift is something you've learned now that you're not an entrepreneur, you're an investor. When I have no proof, how do I adopt that identity that is who I am?
Yeah, well, we went over the criteria exercise, and I think that one book I think that's a good jump off point for folks is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, to just kind of more simplify things like really simplistically, right? From that book, one thing that I learned and took away for the rest of my life was this idea of really just knowing what wealth means to you, right? Like it can mean different things to different people. For me, wealth comes down to peace of mind. And I think that really the ultimate metric for me when I think about peace of mind is quality sleep at night. And it sounds super random. It's like quality sleep at night. What the heck? But what I mean by that is that, I've had an amazing day, worked hard, helped people out, built an amazing thing, great relationship, all that. And I'm just sleeping deeply at night, dreaming amazing, waking up fresh, fired up. There's a level of peace. And I feel like peace is the real thing. And so when I'm thinking that in the frame of, and as an investor, right? Through that frame, knowing that the most important thing to me is peace and that my most important metric is sleep at night, right? I'm then making decisions with that frame.
Yeah.
Which is a lot different than a lot of other frames people may have, right? Whether chasing views or chasing status or chasing just pure cash flow, right? Because I'll actively say just no to things that will make me money that just cost me my peace, right? Yeah, I'm willing to give up a little bit of peace for some cash.
Yeah.
But like
no sleep.
Exactly. But we're careful, right? And that alone, like that little shift, right? It can pay big dividends down the line.
At this third level, what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about making $100,000 a month. This is the starting point where I've talked anecdotally to people in different businesses and things tend to break. There's some individuals based on their model that they've made that level of money and it can be at a high profit margin and they can start to systemize and start to hire the team. But at this point, you reach that friction point where it might be unlikely that you do it yourself. Depends on the business model, but it might be unlikely that you're doing it yourself. How do I monetize myself where I can scale to that level and not drop the ball on the things that actually matter?
Let's talk about the two pieces, right? Let's just say we have like the actual engine of the business being, say, like the cash flows, the offer, sales, that side.
Yeah.
And then the other side, let's talk about marketing, okay? So on the marketing side, you've gotten going, you're building your personal brand, it's growing. At this stage, you need to start thinking of yourself as a personal media company, right? So you've picked maybe either to go video or writing first, right? At this stage though, you need to remove yourself likely from more and more of those pieces, right? So the no-brainer hires, right? Or if you're doing video, a social media manager, right? Someone to actually go and help distribute all this content and keep the quality level high. And then a video editor, obviously, to make sure that stuff's edited so you don't need to do it all yourself, right? Because that's not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
On the other side, if you go writing first, you likely have that social media manager, and you may also have someone helping you with a newsletter, as an example, okay? So that's kind of like the minimum viable team there. On the actual business engine side, well, we definitely got to make sure that we have a scalable offer at this stage, right? When you go and you're looking to maybe then get to the next levels, you want to make sure that, your offer is getting more predictable, that it's becoming more of an actual business, right? And the key thing there is you move from just a simple offer to actually having more of the architecture behind all this. So when you start to break down a business at this stage, right? Typically you can kind of break it down into 7 core kind of stages, okay? Or 7 core components. And those 7 core components will look something like awareness, right? Where you're driving awareness on a platform or two. Inquiry, where people are then joining and maybe applying. From there, you have then your sales, right? You close them and have your onboarding. You then have your collections, right? And let's say your renewal, right? Under each of those now, you have, say, 3 core systems in each of those 7 components, okay? And when you think about those 21 systems, right? If you're on YouTube, it's your thumbnails, it's how you distribute it, it's how you A/B test things, right? On your inquiry side, it's your newsletter and the formatting of it. It's the platform you're using and the intricacies of it. And then it's how you're doing email sequences like welcome sequences and converting people to your thing. right? And so you're breaking that down across your business. And when you have that all systemized, right, you have a systemized empire now, okay? So you've got something that has an infrastructure behind it so that it's not all coming down to you as one human, right? Yeah. You can onboard people, they understand where things are at. You have owners of each of the systems in your business that can easily go and understand it and be onboarded and learn it quick so you can get the ROI of a new hire. And it's starting to become more formidable and feel more like a company versus, again, like some hobby in the earlier stages.
That sounds beautiful and overwhelming. That sounds like the gap between, hey, I'm just going to like kind of spit fire here and we're going to try to make some money. Suddenly we're at this place where it's like, wow, I'm a business owner, I'm a founder, and I have an engine that's running without my energy being the sole thing that drives it. What part is the most important part for me to invest my time in all of that ecosystem?
At a high level, you have two decisions, okay? You either say that for the next like 5 years of your life, you're going to be the engine of the business, or you decide that you're going to start becoming the architect of it, okay? And my vote is that you vote for the architect side. So let's double click into that because the engine means it all comes down to you. It all relies on you. It's your energy, your might, your grit, your fucking gumption that's going to grow that thing. And don't get me wrong, right? That's what got you to this stage. And you're going to still need some of that, right? To get to the next. We're not talking about, it's not perfect, right? It kind of exists on a spectrum, right? But the architect is what you want to start embodying as more of an identity, right? And so what does that look like? Well, you're asking, okay, where do we get started here? Let's say you got nothing, okay? It's like the best way to eat an elephant, right, is like one bite at a time, right? It's not about, oh, you got to do this part first, then that, right? It's like, what's drawing your excitement? Where do you want to get going? Where's your strength lie? Just follow that, right? So, oh, you've been building your audience and really focus there? Cool. Start to systemize it a little bit better. Start to document simply, which we'll get to, the different parts so that your video editor really understands this and can start taking more of a leadership role where they almost become a channel owner versus just a video editor, right? We need to raise leaders underneath us versus just a bunch of workers, right? And that's super important. And so how do you go and actually document this stuff, right? Well, out of all of my, founders I work with, right, and founders I'm friends with, right, I'd say like 90% of them hate documenting shit, right? So I'm not saying to like, take out the typewriter and get ripping or that you got to be in Google Docs all day. I think the minimum viable way, there's two ways that people should know about. Number one is you can go and record yourself the next time you're going and doing the thing on Loom, right? Loom.com, you go, you record yourself, you speak through what you're doing, you pause, you end it, you go to Loom AI and you click generate SOP and it will go and just create a standard operating procedure for you based on what you just recorded. So that is basic, easy as hell, takes you 5 minutes to record the damn thing. And if you think about 21 systems, 5 minutes a pop, it's like, 105 minutes. We're talking like, technically you could probably get through all that in like 3 hours. It's not that much. I'm not even saying to do that. I'm saying like, frig, take 2 months if you want.
Yeah.
But realize too, it's not that much work.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's that piece. The second thing is like, if you don't like that, go and just talk to ChatGPT about what the thing is for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever. And just say, generate the system around this.
Yeah.
And then get it to generate the next one and the next one and the next one. Right. And sure enough, GPT's got it and just copy them all to a Google Doc.
I'm the best at this. I'm the only person that can get this done. I am the one that's going to get it done right. If I give it to somebody else or if I train somebody, then suddenly like it's not going to get done at the quality that I want to get to. So how do I ensure and how do I step back and let delegation actually do its thing?
Right. So, there's always two paths here, right? Like you at any moment in these stages can take an off ramp, right? And the off ramp is like, oh, this stage is great. I'm enjoying this. I actually like being the solo person that pulls in 80 grand a month and makes 78 grand profit. This is beautiful. And there's a lot of things I hate about it. All the customers come to me, all the complaints come to me. I'm kind of like trying to just build this thing and it's, a lot of stuff all at once. And I can hardly take a vacation without worrying. But this is what I've signed up for and I'm actually built for this. And honestly, that's all good. Like if people want to do that, like genuinely go for it, right? Yeah, the kind of person that's looking to keep scaling through these stages, yeah, you got to start building a company where others can come into it and learn. And so, yeah, if you're having troubles delegating though, I mean, there's the mindset of delegation and then there's like the tactics, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on the mindset side of delegation, it's understanding that you need to start building leverage around you, right? And even if someone can do your job 80% as well as you have to start becoming comfortable with that. The other side too is that, yes, it involves letting go while simultaneously having an extreme amount of attention to detail to make sure that that person's being onboarded correctly and doing things right. And I think, at least for me, that's what I even struggle with sometimes. And I understand when folks struggle with delegation because, yeah, you're simultaneously trying to let go of tasks you have on your plate that you've done so well. And then need to make sure, though, along the way that people are actually doing it right without being overly micromanagey or difficult to the point where they just want to leave, right? So how do you go and make sure that then people are onboarded to stuff that they can now do, hopefully as well as you, if not better? Well, we talked about the systems part of it, right? But I mean, it really comes down to kind of the 3 stages of bringing on great people, right? So you have number 1, recruiting, right? First off, making sure that you're clear on the job description and what success looks like in that role, and making sure that the values that you're looking for in these individuals is present in that job description. So you're going to attract the kind of people, say in my case, I'm looking for people that take extreme ownership, that have an all-in mentality, that keep things insanely simple, right? And that brings solutions, not problems, right? These are the values of the company I'm building. So I'm going to be upfront about that out the gate. And if people don't embody that, don't even apply. Okay. So that's number 1, right? And the key thing here too is viewing hiring as a marketing funnel, right? So when you go to founderos.com/careers as an example, go and steal the way we do this. You know, there's a video there that tells you what we're about. We have a headline there. We have the roles there. Each role is its own funnel that you submit an application. You submit a brief Loom video telling us what you're about. So I don't even waste time on an interview if you don't seem right, right? So from there, you know, you've got your kind of job description up, you're recruiting, and now there's like the interviewing, hiring stage, right? From there, it's really making sure that you've got like the right kind of questions, right? And ways of discerning whether someone's legit and the right process there. You know, for every single hire we bring on, we're sending someone a challenge as well, right? So we're seeing, sure, how they show up and how they answer certain shit. We're also seeing, you know, what they can actually get done on their own time, right? And then I may even filter them through a few people on my team as well to see like, hey, does this person check out? Right there, I think the most important thing is to hold a very high standard. When I was early on in my career, if someone was cool, they seemed like a good vibe, they were hired. I was like, I freaking love this person, right? And I hired a bunch of people.
Based on likability?
Yeah, just likability, man.
Yeah,
if you were great, man,
well, because
come
like
on
you think culture, you think, I want to work with people that are fun.
Yeah.
But then how do you look at compatibility and competency?
Yeah, that's where like I think the challenge is great and good questions, right? So one question I love that I learned from Elon is, what is something that you've done that's extraordinary? Tell me more about it. Because you can tell when you ask that question, is this thing actually extraordinary?
Yeah.
And did they actually even do it?
Or do they have pride in it?
Yeah. And do they know the details of it? Like, what did they do actually? And when you hear it, like, they're like, I don't know. I created a YouTube channel. I got 3 subs. It's like, man, doesn't like, what even is this? You know what I mean? Versus the person that's like, oh, I was in university and I vibe coded an app and we ended up getting 10K MRR and this, that. And you're like, okay, wow. Like that's pretty impressive actually. Right? Like, so trying to discern, like, do they actually have a sense for resourcefulness? Are they going to be entrepreneurial, right? And be able to build their own business within my business? And, you know, and then along the way too, do I like the way they were making decisions? Do I like their judgment, their vibe, their intuition, their creativity and taste, right? And so, quickly then the third step there then is the onboarding. And now that you're clear on, you know, what you're looking for, their competencies, the core metrics that they need to hit, they've gone through the challenge, you want to have a rigorous onboarding those first 30, 60 days, right? They should feel like they're coming into almost, not quite though, a borderline boot camp. Right? Like it's a onboarding university. Right? So they're coming in, they're drinking from the fire hose, they're learning the different things, they're meeting the team, but you're kind of already now setting the pace, right? If people come on and they're like, oh, this is chill, man. I like how you got it around here. I mean, it depends on your culture, right? But that's not mine. And I don't think that's generally what's going to make you successful, like early on in a business.
And you're not going to attract A players.
I
Players
think
are going to love that.
When you've done this right, people should be coming on board and be like, this was the most seamless, like really dense, like really well documented onboarding I've ever been through. I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose, but I'm starting to get the hang of it. And then you're, booking a couple calls at least per week with that individual to really make sure like they're getting up to speed.
Yeah.
I'm having that person send me end of day reports every single day, end of week reports every single week. There's a format for that. What did you get done? What are you doing next week? What challenge did you get in front of? And, what do you need my help with? And just keeping tight feedback loops there, right? When I was younger, I would check in maybe every other week. By month one, it's like, okay, I've had a couple meetings. How'd it go? Too much of a leash, right? The key thing we want to do here is like every single day, understand what's going on, right? So you're not giving them much room to screw up. And more importantly, you're very present, you're there. They can feel like you're rooting for them, right? And they know like, oh, you weren't just hiring me and then you're vanishing, right? It's like, no, you hired me and you're present and you're here to invest in my growth and make sure this works out.
The founders that are listening to this, you're finally speaking their language, right? There's certain people that think from a business frame that say, okay, sweet. I don't know about the content side. That sounds a little bit scary. But from this perspective, I want to kind of focus on content on this part right here. Because I think you've just broken out the monetization side and the business growth side. There's some ahas for me that I'm like, well, I don't do that. And I probably should do that. So that's really helpful. Content-wise, beyond the idea of having team members be a part of this process and inserting them, what changes? What's changed between I'm now just being more vocal, I'm doing more, and I might be on more platforms?
One major layer is like, you got to make sure that you have the right operating system just in the company, okay? One example of an operating system is your meeting rhythm, right? And your way of breaking down your vision into 90-day goals, into individual goals, and have ways that people are regularly staying accountable to that, right? So that every single person, every single week, every single month is laddering up to the same common goal.
Yeah.
The best way to do this, should be required reading for everyone reading this if they're trying to get to the stage, is read Traction by Gino Wickman, right? So I've been running that system in my businesses for about 18 years, right? So this idea of every Monday having a level 10 meeting, right? Where you're clear on, your 10-year vision, 3, all that. But most importantly, what are the biggest issues that we have right now? And let's go and solve these issues, handle the opportunities, and then disperse, right? And initially that could just be you and 2 other people, but that's a good habit to get into right at this stage, right? From there, if you have a content team, you probably want to be running a content meeting similarly. Start with wins, right? Go over the core metrics, right? So I don't know, YouTube cash flow, YouTube subs, LinkedIn cash flow, LinkedIn followers.
At this point, are we setting goals and metrics for content in terms of like we're actually trying to hit a specific KPI? Now we're officially trying to say, okay, we want to hit this level of impressions, or we want to hit this level of newsletter subscribers, or we want to hit this level of viewership on YouTube.
Yeah,
are we setting goals here?
Yeah, I think it's good to be setting goals. And as part of these meetings, you're reviewing those goals. You're on track, off track to those goals as individuals. And then what are the issues, opportunities that have come up that we got to solve? Oftentimes too, right? Keep in mind those goals, again, don't need to be subscriber goals or views goals or that kind of stuff, right? You may at this point have a cash flow goal as a company, right? That everyone's aligned around, which is what I would do. And then you may also have like a repetition goal, right? Like we know we want to release one high quality YouTube video every Thursday at 4 p.m. Cool. Like let's be consistent with that, right? And we know that if we just do that, like again, it'll get views, it'll get subs. And obviously we're also trying to get to this cash flow number. And so we're going to make sure it's dialed in that way.
Yeah. What decisions are changed to enhance the quality? What are things that you would recommend to enhance the, like, I think we've kind of glossed over we're going to iterate and update and change. How do we make sure the quality of the content that we're putting out is deserving of the eyeballs that we're trying to get to monetize?
Well, at this stage, you have product market fit, you're scaling 20, 50, 100, right? I think the best way to go and generate a monetizable audience is through like a killer survey, okay? And so the killer survey has 3 core questions to it in your business. And you're surveying, by the way, your top paying customers, So you're going to go and you're going to survey them with 3 questions. You're going to say, number 1, what is the biggest goal right now you have in your business? Number 2, what's the thing keeping you up at 2 a.m. at night? And number 3, if you could wave a magic wand and get my help with anything, what would you want my help with? Right? And so the answers to those questions now give you a deep understanding of their dreams, their desires, their pain points and challenges, and what they're really looking to get done this year. And then it's from that base level of really understanding those customers, you can either go and brainstorm content ideas that solve exactly that. You can upload that CSV from Typeform to GPT and ask it to come up with content for you, and then use your own taste, discernment, and intuition to go and pick those topics. But that to me is how you're then going to go and come up with those like monetizable content ideas to drive cash flow.
Yeah. There's a pivot here where you are identifying still as a investor and business owner, and you're systemizing your content from that frame. It might be hard for someone to not see themselves as a creator also, because there's a lot you have to shed to say, this is something that I'm going to detach from personally with the goal of monetizing it for my business. Versus I think a lot of people, when they approach content, there's a lot more self-consciousness and ego, even as they are successful, even as they do get followers. There's a lot of insecurity that comes through and says, like, oh, I don't know if I want to be seen as that. Or, oh man, do I need to buy a camera to get to that next tier? Or, that edit looks cool. What I'm doing in comparison is awful. Oh, the way I'm writing this, it comes across as AI and I'm utilizing AI, but like, it doesn't really seem like me, and it doesn't seem like people are like really connecting with it. In those objections and the insecurities that come up, what do you say to people that get in their own heads after they have some level of proof that they should continue to create that personal brand, but they're saying, I'm not doing good enough because if I'm comparing it to the people that are doing it the best, it kind of pales in comparison?
First off, I mean, yeah, you got to be careful in life to like, if you're on level 3, to look at people that are level 68.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking at NVIDIA and going, oh my God, why am I not making $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Right? Like that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Right? So like it doesn't make sense in this situation either. Right? So people got to get it out of their heads. Right? What's more beneficial is to maybe look at where those people were at when they were at your stage and what helped them at your stage, and learn from their patterns, their moves they make, the things they said no to, and the opportunities they said yes to. That's helpful.
Yeah.
But don't go too far too fast. Right? Like pick your references correctly, and then you can pick a big reference, right? But then you got to rewind it a bit to what they did then. So that's that. The other piece you kind of were talking about was, I see this piece of the business and that piece and this piece of content and this thing I want, right? You got to start to understand, what are the pieces that you should stay involved with at this stage, and the kind of things you should start removing yourself from, right? I think you want to focus on the things that are in your zone of brilliance, right? The things that you're great at that make you money, right? And that you love to do, right? Stick to those things, right? So in, say, a video operation, right? When you think about a workflow, you probably have stages that include things like ideation. You have then the packaging of it, the production, the editing, and the distribution, and then the analytics, let's say, right? You may look at that and go, okay, where I am best is I'm a badass ideator, right? I know my customers better than anyone. I'm making 1.2 million a year. I think I should stick to that. And I would say it's probably a good idea, right? Maybe you and one sparring partner are still really crystallizing these ideas. Fast forward to then production. Yeah, you're the personal brand, right? So we're keeping you in the production. You're not going anywhere, right? Now, things like editing, distribution, the analytics, right? Even the packaging, right? All that can have different owners other than you, right? And under that whole process, you've gone from having to own it more or less end to end to now just being part of, say, 15% of it. You got to film the damn thing for 45 minutes and then ideate on a meeting every other week, right? So ideally, you're starting to get more of your time back, and you have the wherewithal at this stage to go, yeah, that's probably a better way to run things versus just getting into the weeds so much. Because the thing that humans have troubles understanding, and I think people at this stage need to hear this, is that there's an opportunity cost to everything, right? So it's not, do I do editing of my videos or not, right? It's, do I edit my videos, or do I spend those 3 hours on, say, helping close 3 big partnerships of which I have a 33% close rate, I close one and I make 15 grand. It's like, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Right? Not that one.
Yeah.
Someone you can go and hire for this one will cost you $1,000.
Yeah.
And so you delegated 3 hours for $1,000, let's say. You got those 3 hours back. And on these 3 partnerships calls, your 33% close rate made you 15 grand.
Yeah.
That's a good ROI.
Yeah.
And you got to start thinking like that and have this level of return on investment thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Which is this investor lens, which is where you're looking at, okay, I'm bringing on this person there, but either between the time they've saved me, if I generate this many hours back and allocate those hours to revenue generating items, what's going to be the return on that hire, assuming this works out?
Yeah.
And similar to an investor, you can also set things like a hurdle rate, right? So 60 days out, you're making a bet. You're going to bring on this video editor. It's going to get you more time back and you're going to close more partnerships. 60 days out, did you close more partnerships? Did it work? My guess is yes, right? But in some doomsday scenario, somehow that didn't work out, you can look yourself in the mirror, analyze things a bit, sit down and go, okay, what happened here?
Yeah.
And these are two-way doors, as Jeff Bezos says, right? You can go through them. You can always go back. It's not a big deal.
I think a lot of people that watch your content, they love the aesthetic. And so people that are fans of you, when they say they love your vibe, there's a personality aspect of that, and then there's an aesthetic aspect of that. And a lot of people appreciate the artistry in there. And I imagine a lot of your followers would want to think from the frame of how can I get my stuff to be at that standard? Because most of the time, especially from a business owner perspective, maybe they're not innately creative that way. They're learning that muscle, they're doing that muscle, but it's more about communicating with conviction and being a personality versus being that editor. How would you help them go about increasing their quality so that they're seen as the brand they want to represent, as they also just flex the muscle of I'm delegating this to other people?
Yeah. So I think first things first is not losing sight of like quality with, say, video is not just what it looks like or the cinematography or the color grade or the lighting, right? The quality, first and foremost, is like the actual content itself, right? The storytelling, the value, what you bring across, like don't lose sight of that, right? Because you can put, lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig, right? And the same thing goes to your content. If it's just garbage, it doesn't matter your color grade, right? So that's the first thing. And that's the main thing. From there, I think it's, again, chipping away like brick by brick, right? Like if you look at my stuff and you compare it just going through my YouTube and go to my first video, right? Like there's a drastic difference. And, you go 10 videos in and another 10 videos down, like you can see the progress, right? It didn't just happen overnight. It was like a staircase. And I think the big thing is understanding that growth, whether it's in the aesthetic of your brand, the growth of your audience, the growth of your cash flow, there's only one way to grow it, right? And you got to take the stairs, right? Not the elevator, right? And so when we think about the stairs, what that could look like is, first things first, get the sound right? I think sound's one of the most, underrated things, right? And you've got some nice Shure mics here, so you know what you're doing, right? So now the sound's right. You're rocking that, you're doing that. Next thing you know, maybe you're getting the set a little bit right and making it not just beautiful, but something that feels like you, right? So a lot of my sets, I'm in nature, or I'm just at my spot wherever I am, right? And that's just what I think looks good. And that's my vibe. So I do that. The next thing is like, you may consider at some point actually getting like a more formal like brand identity created, right? Where like you have your core color, you have your fonts, you have your way of maybe animating things and starting to kind of gradually think through that a bit, right? I don't think you need to overdo it too early, but simply just having a core color, core couple fonts will get you a long way.
Yeah.
And then, there's then layers of things like, sure, depending on what you're trying to create, color grading, B-roll selection, and so forth, right? Along the way too, if you're doing things right at this stage, right, you're growing your cash flows, you're hiring amazing people to manage things like a YouTube channel. And ideally, you're hiring right where those people have good taste and they understand your vision and you have a mutual vision and you have mutual references for what you're going for. Yeah. So if your reference, as an example, is like, I want to create content like Matt does, but in this space, and they're both aligned, ideally have someone on board then that knows how to execute that because it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Right. So that's roughly how I think about it.
I like that a lot. I think a lot of business owners opt for ease. So I liked how you communicated like, hey, it's really important for you to stay in the ideation space, and it's really important for you to stay in the production space of it. I do think that there's a lot of business owners, even at a high level, like even at tiers where they're making lots of money. I know one of my clients is making, $30 million a year. And for him, he's decided to spend a lot of time in the ideation, but it's still frustrating. And he still feels like, oh my goodness, it just takes so much effort to like just put myself in the front of the camera. Like I'm going to do it. I know I need to do it, but it just takes so much effort, even though I have a brand. There's people that follow me. There's people that want content from me. It just takes so much like in me to be like, fine, I'm actually passionate about this, or this is a cool idea. And they get stuck in the ideation side of stuff. What's advice that you'd have to expand beyond the, here's some core things, here's some things about me, here's some to-dos, here's some things that associate with my business, to actually being creative in our ideation process?
Well, we talked about that killer survey, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's like, first off, now you're grounded in what your customers are looking for. Hopefully you're able to get creative around that, right? And then I think it's also not losing sight of, it comes down to then, I think your taste, your intuition, your judgment. And let's just simplify it even more, right? If you're creating on YouTube, what books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? There's an art of intentional content, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to just like follow your own hunches, right? What are you watching out there? What are you inspired by? You like biographies of entrepreneurs. Cool. Where does that go? What stories do you like from them? Is there any that you have like that? Do you want to just talk about them and what you've learned from them and relate that to how you then solve customer problems? Like you got to kind of get creative there, right? Yeah. And I think that it's oftentimes right under your fingertips, right? Like as much as we're all maybe looking to create, we also all consume, right? And we consume shows and podcasts and books and articles and all this stuff, and starting to pay more attention to that. And instead of just being some consumer, start to think of yourself more as a curator.
Yeah.
Right. And start to put together like mood boards, start to save things on X that you're into, start to bookmark things on LinkedIn if that's what you're on, start to save things to a YouTube playlist, right? Of videos that inspire you. Start to take note of the books that you read and maybe highlight the different aspects and port those over from your Kindle to Readwise to save them for later. Maybe it's using tools like My Mind or Pinterest or, Arena or Cosmos, right? Doesn't matter what the hell you use, right? I think though, as you're looking to take that aspect more serious, I think you have two ways you go, right? Either just stick to the raw vibe of it. And candidly, I think that's where most people should be, right? We have a second channel we just started and we're going pure raw vibes, just no editing, just clipping shit and behind the scenes shit, and that's it, right? Just super raw. And I think that's a great way to go. I actually think that's where the pendulum is swinging in this space.
Kind of like a less curated Daniel Dallin kind of vibe.
I would say even more raw.
Yeah.
I mean like legit raw. Like just, it's just you filming some shit. Yeah, sure, a videographer doing their thing, but like keep it chill. Like really going for just like, this is sustainable and easy. And this is literally just me.
Yeah.
No crazy script shit. No crazy like cinematography, just like literally simple, right? Start there. That's one. The second is like, if you go more this, you're looking for more aesthetic or more dialed in. That's where I think this curation piece is really important.
Yeah, I did an internal assessment kind of similar to this when I started the podcast, where I was like, okay, what am I watching? What do I actually enjoy? What do I want to be associated with? How do you consume and take in ideas without just being a copy of somebody else?
Yeah, I think it's really making sure that you're, first off, like taking inspiration from many different sources, right? And taking inspiration, right? Versus stealing. Stealing is when it's just a, direct copy, right? Whereas inspiration is you have, multiple sources, you enjoyed the lighting from this thing and you liked the color grade over here and you like the way this title attracted people that way. And you're kind of amalgamating all those and mashing it up into then something that's new and 80% then just combined with your own creativity. So it becomes something different, right? And so I think it's, that.
There's something I was asking Chris about that he told me that's really important. I was using the term like moat, like creating your own moat. And like, for example, one thing you've done is I would say that you were one of the first people to also use environment and just being outside as a moat. You were one of the first business creators making content. And I remember there's like one time you made a video. I don't remember if you were in Morocco, but essentially you were on vacation. I just
Saudi
remember
Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, and you basically took you had one camera and you just took it and went to a bunch of different places. You made some B-roll of yourself, and it was very minimalistic, but it was just you sitting down and you're like, I'm going to record this section in this set. I'm going to record this section in this set. And I was like, that's a really cool, distinctive thing. That's what Chris Williamson said to me. He was like, it's about distinctiveness. It's not about, like, I use the term moat of like, what can you do that no one else can do? Right? Like not many people are going to be able to go to Saudi Arabia and record a YouTube video. That's a moat. That's something that you can do that no one else can. Not everybody can book a studio. Not everybody can have really high quality cameras. And then suddenly you're stacking all these individual moats. Is that an important thing to keep in mind at this stage, or am I getting ahead of myself?
Well, I think the concept of a moat or like your competitive advantage online is important. I just think that sometimes these conversations, when we get too lost in like the editing and the equipment and the color grade and all this stuff, leads us away from the actual just content itself.
Yeah.
Right. And I think hopefully that's where you're building the real moat.
Yeah.
Right. Your energy, your stories, the things you know, the things you're helping people with, they can feel the level of care, passion, the resonance through the camera or through the writing that they're like, damn, I love this person. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the real value is, right? I would hope that I could dial my whole channel back down to just a pretty raw format and hopefully have people be like, this is amazing. I love this. This is a cool new way of doing things because they're showing up for me, right? Not showing up because they're like, oh, it's so cool, the nature scenes behind it.
Yeah.
Or, I really love to see his animations, right?
I like the fact that you're saying you're intentionally making raw content so that's the thing that carries through. Is that, you said that's where the pendulum is swinging. What indications is showing you? Because that might sound freeing to a lot of people to say like, oh, I can actually just stay raw. I don't have to do all the extra stuff.
Yeah, I think that my own perspective is that when you look online right now, the first question that everyone has when they look at a piece of content is, was that made by AI?
Yeah.
Right? And so when you think about the best way of ensuring that it wasn't made by AI and people know is to make it pretty raw.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, oh, this is a real human behind it.
Yeah.
So if you're making short form content as an example, maybe that's just a vertical video with you with a plugged in wired headphones, just speaking into them and talking to the camera. Right. And people know that's definitely a human because this is definitely not AI. It's not that polished. Right. And so it's kind of embracing imperfection. And, when I even look at my own data, say on Instagram, right, of the last 6 months, it was a video that was a raw iPhone video with a wired headset, just speaking into it, that was the best performing and people really enjoyed it. Right. And we have a lot of other polished stuff. And I think there's a balance to everything. But yeah, I think it should be really freeing to people out there that, it's going from polished to imperfect. And there's never been a better time, honestly, to get started because this is where, business is going. This is where branding is going. And again, the pendulum swinging to a point where, just pick up your iPhone and get ripping. People are going to ask, is this AI? And all along the way, they're going to know that, no, this isn't slop. Like this is really who you are.
All right. At level 4, we're making $500,000 a month. This is a very established brand. This might seem overwhelming to a lot of people. This might seem impossible to a lot of people, but I like how you've kind of carried the frameworks at each phase. You've carried how the core thing is the system. It's not necessarily the scale of the audience. You've really messaged that like really, really well. Here, I want to highlight the fact that I love, for you in particular as a creator, how you repurpose your content across different platforms. And you make sure that you squeeze the life out of one thing that you create. Like one thing that you're known for are these, like essentially your written down frameworks. Can you talk to me your framework for how you write YouTube videos and how you ideate YouTube videos and then repurpose those across other platforms?
Yeah. So the system you're referring to is a system called the Content Waterfall system. Okay. And it's a powerful system to basically go and take a pillar piece of content, which is any long form piece of content, could be a newsletter, YouTube video, long form LinkedIn post, whatever, and then repurpose that into 24 other pieces of content or more. Okay. And so when we think about a YouTube video, so we may go and ideate YouTube videos, say on, how to remove yourself from operations, how to go and, scale your audience to millions, whatever it may be, right? Doesn't really matter. We take that long form YouTube video, and then we're going to find, the best clips from it as an example, right? We find the best 6 pieces where maybe in YouTube Studio, we're seeing different spikes in it. Those become short form videos, 6 for YouTube Shorts, 6 for Instagram Reels, 6 for TikTok, and maybe even 6 that we post on X as well. From there, we have the actual transcript of it itself, right? And can go and take that transcript. And if there's little pieces of it that are solid, we can repurpose that into, 15 tweets, a few LinkedIn long form posts, and maybe a couple newsletters over the coming month, right? Not to mention that long form YouTube video also then is posted on Spotify and on Apple Music on the podcast side, right? So I don't have that number right there, but it's roughly 35 pieces of content, right? And what this allows you to do is, when I go and I have my content team, right, at FounderOS and across my portfolio now, we're doing over 1.2 million a month. But the key thing is you're starting to see a lot of this investment in content bubbling up these outliers, right? You may have a LinkedIn post that just blows up, let's say. My team knows that what we'll typically do then is waterfall that piece of content. And waterfall is essentially a verb for saying, hey, we're going to take the essence of that outlier on that platform over there and start to see what we can do with it on all the other platforms. So we'll go and maybe take a post that is, 7 steps to go and design your dream life and go, okay, let's try that as a YouTube video. We'll take the long form LinkedIn post, the infographic behind that, and kind of use that as the jump off point to create that YouTube concept. Then we go and create that YouTube video and we repurpose it again across all platforms and follow the system, right? Or I can just directly take that LinkedIn post, right? And I can go and take, some of the pieces from the long form aspect, put it on X, put the infographic on X as well. And we'll oftentimes just see that go and blow up, right? And so it's just starting to get more smart about the content because you only have a finite amount of energy, right? There's only so much time you can spend on camera. And so what we're trying to do at this stage is get the biggest bang for our buck, the most ROI from your energy being spent on these amazing, deep ideas that you're sharing online.
Alex Hormozi talks about the fact that content is his primary amount of time. Like he spends the most amount of time ideating for short form and for long form. And then he spends either 1 day or 2 days just writing for it. And then he spends a third day shooting. Are we at that phase where that's realistic? Like, is that kind of how you operate in your process? Or do you think that for you, you're like, I'd rather just focus on the writing piece and then we're just going to make sure that our distribution's telling us the data of what we're trying to do?
Yeah. I think the key thing here is to understand, again, what is your zone of brilliance, right? What is the thing that you do better than anyone else that you should focus on, right? One of the core things I've done for every single day for the last 15 years is my 4 hours of founder flow. Okay. And these 4 hours are my sacred time where, in 1 hour, I probably get more done than most people get done in a couple days, right? It's uninterrupted time, no phone, no social media, just locked in doing what I got to do, right? And when I've taken time to reflect and, retreats I've gone to every 6 weeks to reflect in nature on what I should be focused on, I've also reflected on what's the most powerful things that I can be doing in those 4 hours, right? And for me, exceptional content creation is my thing. Now, that's not to say I'm always doing that, right? But if there was one lever I could choose that was the biggest lever to go and transform my portfolio of companies, it's my strength and my ability to go and create exceptional content, right? Now, exceptional content isn't just YouTube or LinkedIn content or whatever, right? It's a bit more of a catch-all, right? It could be creating amazing systems for the founders that I'm helping every day. It could be going and creating amazing experiences and the content behind those experiences, whether we're hosting something in Bali or the Dolomites or, Mexico City, wherever, right? Content could be YouTube, it could be a newsletter. And most importantly, right now, it's my book that I'm creating, okay? So it's broad. It's not just, one type, right? So when we're asking, okay, well, what should a founder be doing? Because, Hormozi does this and Matt does this, right? I wouldn't say that everyone should just be doing content, right? Because, look at Hormozi as an example, right? I mean, he's got a co-founder in these things, Layla. What's Layla spending 80% of her time on? I think she's spending 80% of her time on the ops and hiring, right? And 20% on probably finances and monetization. So it's drastically different than Alex's,
Yeah.
right? And so you got to decide on, well, at this stage, you're looking to continue to scale your company. You got to make sure that you're focused on the most important stuff, right? Typically, most CEOs, their main thing are, three core things you got to be thinking about: numbers, people, and culture, right? Numbers, right? What are you making right now? What is your margin? What are you trying to get to? What are your projections? What's your forecast per month? Are you on track, off track? And what are the three things you need to do this week to get back on track if you're off, right? On the people side, who do you need to hire, right? Who do you need to fire? Are you onboarding people right? Do you have the right people in the right seats, right? Have you overhired? You need to remove people. Do you have more people on the hiring list you got to add? You got to prioritize who to hire now because you can only hire a couple people a month given your cash flows, right? These are the things to think through. And then on the culture side, right? My big thing is like, am I constantly amping it up, right? Pushing the envelope more, right? Am I getting people to move with more urgency? Am I getting them to be more creative? Am I getting them, most importantly, to think bigger, right? That's kind of like the culture piece of it. And inevitably too, are you creating a place that people are having fun and that you're retaining people, right? Because with most teams that I've worked on, right, the most magic happens when you be able to work with each other for 3+ years versus having some revolving door, whether it's on the creative team or on sales.
Yeah. And at that point, that's where the previous level of making sure that your hiring process, your onboarding process is like really dialed in. Because how many times have you found people that are not A players and that's only been revealed over time?
I think that happens like back a napkin, let's say 10% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now your qualification systems are so dialed in that you can identify within the onboarding process or within the hiring process, like this person is a killer, they're verified, and they do fit our culture. Is that like an intentional choice, or do people grow into the roles? Because if you're saying 3+ years, to be honest, like the idea of hiring A players that are going to help me build for 3+ years sounds like a dream to a lot of people. It took me a long time. It took me about 2.5 years to find, I would say, 2 A players that fit what I was trying to do. And I felt like, okay, got it. And I had that high level of trust. How would you bridge that gap between where you're at and where I'm at, which is feeling like I'm probably not even organized enough, it sounds like, to have identified those A players in the first place? Like, I think some people want to find them, they just don't know how.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to go and start thinking through this, which is not all that easy, actually, it's quite like, you got to be committed, is one great way of like discovering, first off, when you're kind of getting going, it's even hard to get a barometer for what an A player is.
Yeah.
Right. There's many different roles in a company, right? So let's say we're talking about a social media manager, right? I think one easy way to start understanding what an A player social media manager is go and start talking to 5 legendary social media managers that are not even looking for jobs.
Yeah.
Just go talk to them.
Yeah.
Right. So you go and talk to Stephen Bartlett's social media manager. You go and talk to Chris Williamson's or whoever. I just know these folks.
Yeah.
And so from there, you're just learning like how do they see things? What do they say is a social media manager that's an A player, right? And you're starting to now understand from A players how they see it. The other benefit to this that I find most useful is that similar fish swim together, right? So you go and you start talking to A player social media managers. Well, sure enough, they know other A player social media managers, right? The same way that, A player video editors know all the other A player video editors, right? So typically I found my personal brand is the best way to recruit A players. And then secondly, it's hitting up other A players I know and just hitting them up and see if they know anyone.
I love that. Secondly, like I think you tapped in this, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into it. What are you pulling in from a consultation perspective? So like, you're probably at that point where you're saying we've gotten as far as we can get to through our own means. The people that we've hired, I feel like they're good, but I feel like I'm blocked here. I'm not getting the results I'm looking to get on LinkedIn. Oh, I'm not really getting the results I'm looking to get on YouTube. What's your process of assessing and saying, oh, that's the person I want to bring in to like advise us so we can get proper feedback on the next level of what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I think it's, you're almost like an athlete, right? Like entrepreneurs are like athletes in the sense that, you need rest, you need to train, all that good stuff, but you need an amazing coach around you, right? You need amazing teammates, you need advisors, right? You need people to push you. And so what I'm looking at all the time is just, in my, annual in my monthly board meeting every single month, which is this, I basically have this Google slide deck where in it, I have like kind of all the core components of my life and business. And then at the end of every month, I reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, and what did I learn. And one of the slides in there is my personal board of advisors, right? And across all the different aspects of my business, things like offers, copy, sales, etc., I have, okay, who's helping me in that area, right? And typically finding people that are 3 steps ahead of me, right? If it's a sales individual, it's someone that's already built something to $5 million a month. If it's someone on the audience side, it's that they've run, a high growth personal brand at the scale we're getting it to, right? And then tapping into them rather informally a lot of the time, right? It could be coffees, a dinner, a meeting here and there, even just having them via text message to help me when a thing comes up, right? And so that's something I've always done, even when I was getting started. And I'm not saying it looked like these people I have now, but I think we've all experienced it, right? Like you can hear from someone that's maybe doing $20 million a year when you're just getting started. But what's actually most useful is just to talk to the peer that's maybe making $20,000 a month, that's just a few steps ahead of you, or whatever, and get them to just, just do this, right? So it's making sure you're surrounding yourself with those people by actively understanding that that's important, and to keep reaching out to folks until you find the community that's right for you, essentially. And not being as afraid just to invest in that too, if you can't, right? Like oftentimes you don't know how to curate those folks, but they're part of a community, or I don't know, they're somewhere all gathering. And so, go and buy a ticket to that thing or whatever it may be to start opening up your network.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love how you framed that, because that sounds so much more simple and less transactional and less gross than being like, oh, I'm just going to, I think a lot of people look for like an agency to like solve a lot of those problems, and they just can't. And then they put expectations on their internal team to solve a lot of those problems and give like them a lot of those answers. And it's gonna be really difficult too. It sounds like you operate in a way where collaboration is just a part of everything you do. You're going to interact with people. You're going to ask people questions. I always had troubles with not looking at what the best do. Like that's me personally. Like I've always struggled with that. I'm like, dude, the best is going to do that. And why would I settle for anything less than what the best is going to do? What would you say to someone that wants to skip some of these natural levels of processes and then just jump to being like, all right, I'm going to start tomorrow and I'm going to just compete with Alex and Layla. I'm going to compete with Dan Martell. I'm going to compete with Cody. I'm going to compete with Matt. I'm going to compete with these people. Is that going to be a net negative long term? And is it worth it for them just to take each of these steps and think, let me invest more tactically and let me just build these muscles?
Yeah, I think it's a nuanced question. I mean, when you think about, say, all the 20 different aspects of a business, let's say, and of the mindset to do these things, right? There's, maybe things like, sales, where you just got to take the stairs and do the thing, right? There's maybe, the finance piece of it. You just got to kind of get the finance manager, start setting it all up and gradually start improving it. But maybe you have already an innate core skill of videography, right? Or maybe you're already a really good salesperson. So you can maybe aim higher in that area right out the gate and kind of start to make that almost like the far edge of your spear, right? Similar to what I did, with Founder OS as an example, right? Like I had been building all these media companies, and I had been creating like 36,000 pieces of content for businesses before I got into this. So I was able to kind of start maybe operating at a higher velocity and get it scaled up a lot faster because I've done this. Whereas maybe in an area like, I don't know, the finance area, right? Like that I had to take the stairs more. And so I think it's fine to do that. It's just also, keeping your expectations kind of reasonable, right? It's good to simultaneously, I think, try to be aggressive in the short term while being like patient in the long term, right? So patient enough to know this is going to take time. I have this big goal this year, but maybe it ends up taking 3 times longer to get there. While simultaneously, like in the moment and in the week, I'm going to push, right? And I'm going to move things forward, and not push because of a sense of scarcity or, oh man, like if I don't do this, I'm an idiot. No, push because it's a sport and it's fun and like that's part of the game.
What's the difference in the way that we're talking right now, this is a big question. You can shut it down if you want to, but you've also worked with creators and people that are just, they've always been through the lens of YouTubers. So they've thought through like audience growth. I'm thinking of Ali, you mentioned Johnny Chang is in the community. Like, there's a lot of people that started not with the intention of making money, but with the intention of building audience because it felt natural to them. Like, but there's a large demographic of what people would perceive as like broke creators. They just make content and they're like, well, I have 1 million followers. I'm really great at getting content out, but I have no idea how to make money. And then they do some kind of like small like t-shirt drop that fails, or they have some kind of small thing that fails. What would be step one if I've already gotten the skill set of building audience? If I'm going from the reverse of I have to now go back and think through the process of monetization. What's like a pitfall in there that I should avoid?
Well, I think the first pitfall is viewing yourself as a creator. I think you need to view yourself as a founder, right? Like you have built a distribution engine and now you need to figure out an offer to sell to these folks in your community and start to stand it up and make this a profitable business. This is not a hobby. You're not a creator. We're not just trying to get views. Like we need to really start generating cash flows, right? And so then with that identity in mind now, being like, okay, no, I'm a business owner, right? And we're building a business here, not just some channel. I think it's then kind of back to stage one we went through, right? Which is okay. We just got to go back through that. And I think the hard part there can be, and I see this whether it's, established creators or established founders. Established founders have the problem of they built a really successful business, but now they got to go to stage one of a personal brand. And established creators have the problem of they've gone to level 4 in personal branding, but now they got to go to level 1 of business. Right. And I think it's just being okay in all of our careers, right? To just be a beginner, right? And just go back to level 1, right? The good news is you're not starting with a pool of 20 people, you've got 500,000 or whatever. So start really listening to these people because it's a material size, right? And if you just launch the right thing and learn these skills correctly, right? Like this is insanely transformative. And also understand too, that the cost of an action is big too. Like, cool, you've built this big audience, right? But if you can't crack the code on actually how to start monetizing these people, like, damn, what a shame all that work you've gone and put into growing this amazing audience and all these people and all those eyeballs and all those days of publishing content, even when it was hard, all of that for nothing, right? Like that's the most expensive thing you can do. And so it's worth just rolling up your sleeves, humbling yourself and getting back to what's the offer? What can we launch? Let's put a price out there and let's start iterating on this thing.
I love that so much. That's helpful for me. Selfishly, I'm thinking through this where it's like, I think I have I don't know if it's like a fear of money thing. I have this like, I fear feeling transactional or having my audience.
It's really helpful to shift your frame. And I do this all the time. It's like shift from sales to serving, right? Like you're here to show up and to just serve people, right? Like, and when you shift to that, like this podcast isn't to get views, like hopefully just some people like me, like you, whatever, right? Like find a lot of value here. It helps them in some way, right? And if you just keep doing that over and over and over, like what a transformative impact you're going to make, in your community, on the planet, in humanity, all that great stuff. And the same thing goes with like offering a product, right? It's like, you're not trying to sell someone. You're not trying to close someone, right? Like you've got a thing, you think it would be beneficial to them, you think it would serve them, and maybe they end up wanting it, and maybe they don't. Either way, no harm, no foul, right? And that way too, it just removes this kind of, I don't know, this dirtiness from it, right? And just makes it this more clean, pure kind of soulful act.
I really appreciate how you balance that intersection really well. Because like you keep shutting down the term creator, even though when you're a content creator, that's what you're perceived as. You are saying from an identity perspective, you're shifting to that. And then I appreciate you calling me out because I think like, I went to an event recently and I'm not happy with where my business is at. And so when someone asked what I did, I said I was a podcaster because that felt better. I felt like my identity feels better there because I'm more proud of where that state is versus anything else. And I think you're breaking my brain a little bit because you're saying like, it's really important that you think like, if I thought to myself, if I embodied what an investor would feel like, then the pride I'd have in the amount of time I spend in different things and the delegation levels that I'd go to with that frame, I feel like shifts everything. Do you encounter a lot of founders with the 18,000 founders that you've worked with? Like, do you encounter a lot of them that get stuck in any of these buckets where they say, it's really hard for me to perceive myself this way?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I think that entrepreneurship is like an inner game, right? And, we all struggle to get to that next level. And most of the time, when you analyze what's going on there, first off, it's you. And when you analyze what part of you, well, it's your mindset and something that probably needs to shift there to unlock that next level, right? It's not the team, it's not the business model. Like those can play a role, right? But inevitably too, it's how you're thinking about it. And so, yeah, you encounter, and I encounter, in the community inside of Founder Us, we're helping people with this stuff, but the kinds of identity struggles that you'll see from people is, they're addicted to being the engine of the business and not willing to start becoming the architect, or they love being that founder that can do all the things and be always relied on, and aren't shifting to being more systemized, right? And being more leveraged as a founder. There's people that think they're not worthy of getting to that next step, right? And they got to work on some like self-esteem type stuff and getting over some limiting beliefs that they have to kind of unlock that. And you have folks that are like the perfectionist types as an example, right? And their perfectionism, while it got them to one stage, is now making them really hard to be around, making it really hard on their team. They got a revolving door of talent, and that's hindering them from getting to that next stage thereafter. So there's always something, I've even got stuff we're all got stuff that we're processing, right? And trying to work through.
Yeah. What's yours?
Mine right now, I mean, an example of one, I don't know if it's not necessarily, it's kind of an identity. I'm being similar to this conversation, like really careful about the words that I say, right? Which is what I'm trying to also instill in you a bit, right? It's like being careful about how you speak about yourself and all that, right? An example is like recently stopped kind of thinking of things as problems and instead approaching them as a puzzle, right? And so it's not, I'm constantly like this guy that's like complaining and this came up and oh fuck, this person did this and then this came up and now there's this problem and this and like, maybe my identity is like at sometimes like the whiny CEO, right? Instead it's like, it's a puzzle, and approach it, literally just that word to me just like instills something different, right? It's like, oh, okay, there's like a way to figure this out. I just got to kind of move some pieces around. What might be missing? Who could help me? How can I approach this in a constructive way? How can I make this something that we're all going to do together in a way that's enjoyable and playful and fun and abundant, right? We were talking about where I know I'm going to solve the puzzle, right? This isn't some problem that's going to take me down. And so that just reframe then to me allows me to show up in a way that's just, again, more productive and constructive, and sure enough allows me to solve it a lot faster too.
Something that you are, I feel from you, I'm going to guess it's accurate. I feel from you is that the stuff you've built up over this time through these systems, it prevents burnout from being a possibility because you're staying in this state of optimizing for peace and optimizing for sleep and optimizing for the things you enjoy and optimizing for freedom. If someone is trying to retroactively fix a lot of these things, but they're experiencing burnout, what would you say to them?
Burnout or any problem in life, right? Like the key pattern I think I've broken down here is like trying to start with like, what's that, simple step, right? Like keep things simple. Yeah. And when it comes to burnout, I think it's understanding like, what's the opposite of burnout, right? Well, go and think about, what is your perfect day, right? Like what would be the 18 things that would consist or constitute a perfect day for you, right? Or less, right? But just if you brainstorm them, and if I brainstorm them, it's like, oh, I would wake up, have an amazing smoothie. I'd have good sleep. I would, call a friend. I would meet with a friend. I would go outside for a hike in nature. I would do a sauna, a cold bath. I'd go to the gym. I'd do a yoga class. I'd stretch outside. I would walk outside with my feet on the ground. I would maybe talk to my therapist. I would read a book, meditate, listen to some music while going for a walk. I would maybe watch a good movie that I love, whatever, right? Well, now you've got a bit of a list as to like, okay, we're feeling a bit of burnout. Like, can we start to just add like a couple of these things, right? Like, oh, I'm going to start reading a book before bed instead of watching YouTube, let's say, and I'm going to start meditating for 5 minutes, or I'm going to start giving myself the ability on Sundays, unplug and just nature day. and starting to kind of get a little creative there, and also giving yourself permission that like, if you're not at your best and feeling at your best, like the business isn't going to be at its best, right? Like strong internal founders build strong businesses. And so it's okay to take a break, right? It's okay to relax. It's okay to take a step back. It's okay to, do less, right? Because sometimes by just doing less, you just do better.
Yeah.
And so it's having that awareness. And I think it's the hardest part that I found personally is really noticing, right? I think the issue that I talk with a lot of established founders is like, it's so far down their journey of burnout. And then they notice, whoa, like they take a vacation because someone pulls them to say, just take 2 days. And they do it and they're like, whoa, I didn't know how much I needed that. My Lord, right? I was like,
because they've done it every single day, nonstop.
Just grinding or whatever, right? And so hopefully you're able to develop a certain awareness and ability to notice over time, like, ooh, I'm being really sharp with people. Wow, I'm just like frustrated. I'm just angry at where we're at. And like, things aren't this bad. Like, I got to just take a step back for a sec. Give yourself a couple days, right? I know I needed that recently. Like I said, vanished in Japan and just took a few weeks to do my thing, right? And just was finally able to get a bunch of perspective and come back fresh, ready to go.
I want to end on this last level. Level 5, you're making over $1 million a month. You have a fully fleshed out system. You're scaling. If you're at this point and you're doing it with content, you're at the top level. Very few people are going to get here. I don't want to declare that in a negative sense, but it's an accomplishment in and of itself. What are things that you're saying no to? Because you guys are here, and it seems like you just said that you left and went away for 3 weeks. Are you doing that intentionally, saying no to things and being like, I just need to take this break? Or are you doing that in a way where it's like, I actually kind of want to see where the gaps are?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you just brought up 2 good points, right? It's a bit of both, right? First off, the big benefit is being able to unplug and be offline gives you perspective, gives you the ability to connect with others. I was out there with a buddy, Daniel Dalen, first time meeting up in person. We're able to chop it up, enjoy this epic trip, backcountry snowboarding. Of course, yeah, he's a legend. And backcountry snowboarding in Japan, it was like a core memory. It was a great time and more of that planned, right? So that's just important, right? Because at the end of your life at 85, you're not looking back on like, oh, did I make this money? Did I do this? It's like, no, these experiences, these memories that are really going to matter. So that's important to take time for those, even if it means sacrificing cash flows or whatever.
Yeah.
On the other side of it, yeah, it's a great stress test for a business too, right? We inevitably want to build a business that's founder independent, right? A business where you can walk away from it for 30 days and come back and it's stronger than when you left. But with all that said, right? When you step away, you also learn, right? What are the pieces that are broken, or what were the people that didn't know what to do or who to go with these sorts of problems, right? You start to understand the parts that may have a degree of founder dependence. And so, when I walk away, I come back, I'm able to maybe see some pieces that were not quite as tight as I had thought, right? And then go and fix those things. But it's better to have known that versus just grinding in a business, let's just say, because you feel like those founder dependent pieces need to rely on you constantly and that there's no way out. Again, we started this with saying that entrepreneurship is about freedom, and freedom is optionality, right? Freedom to control where you work, when you work, what you work on, and with who you work with, right? And so I think this ability to unplug, the goal to have a business that can run without you better than you being there, is really what you should be after, so that you can focus on the stuff that you love, and build something enduring for 100 years, right? Versus someone you want to quit in a year.
Yeah. You, with content at this level, what's the distinction between, let's say, level 3, where you're starting to build this team, and then level 5, where the team is fully fleshed out? Do you have subject matter experts in every single department?
Yeah. So you have, experts in every area, right? So, at this stage, you have things like a newsletter writer, you have your social manager, you have a social manager under them because you're producing maybe more content, you need a couple. You have a designer designing things like Instagram carousels, LinkedIn infographics, make sure everything's tight. You have a robust company. It depends on your business model, right? So everything's going to, vary there. I think one core aspect, right, is the infrastructure. So one core thing that I'm really big on is the most powerful system I've ever made is something called the content GPS, right? It's when you have your organic audience being built across multiple platforms, you're driving people then to an email list, have different conversion mechanisms like lead magnets that lead people to that thing, and then have CTA strategically embedded in your email sequences to drive people to sales of your products and sales calls for other things you may be selling, right? And then from there, you've got, a really amazing delivery model, right? Where you're not just, driving customers, right? But you're driving loyal customers that stay with you for 2, 3, 4, 5 years because the product is amazing. People enjoy what you're doing. They're having fun. They're building a great community and they stay stuck in that thing, right? And so when you're scaling past $1 million a month, what you got to make sure you got in place, right? Number one, you got to make sure that you got that infrastructure really solid, right? Because we got to make sure that we're capturing people, capturing leads that can drive us predictable revenue so that as the team expense maybe goes to say $100,000, $150,000, $200,000, depending on the business, that with confidence, right? That like you're smooth sailing, right? There's nothing more nerve wracking as a business owner, not ensuring where, how you're going to pay your team or something like that. You certainly don't want that as you're scaling. Now, the big piece there too with the infrastructure is not just the content infrastructure, it's the data infrastructure. Okay. So you've got all this getting built out, right? A metric that you really need to start tracking in and around this stage by now for sure, and hopefully even sooner, is your profit per piece of content. So when you look at any one of my YouTube videos as an example, and you look underneath it, there's generally a couple links. One may go to apply to Founder OS, and one may go to a lead magnet. Those are both UTM'd, meaning they're unique trackable links that are tracked inside of HubSpot, which is what we use for all of that, right? So HubSpot manages all of those links. We can sort them into then stages in our CRM, and then we can go and understand, who's converted. And most importantly, we can track the cash collected per piece of content, right? What ends up happening is on a media level, when you zoom out for a second, you'll go and look at a piece of content. Let's just say you look at my second most popular video on my channel, right? It's around business is hard until you build systems like this. The video has around 400,000 views. And if you went and looked at my channel right now, you're like, oh, that video probably made him a lot of money. Last time I went and looked at it, I think we made around $2,400 from that video. Okay. And it shocked me too.
Yeah.
Okay?
How does that happen?
In 30 days, we made that much. Yeah. So but we'll get to that. But the next piece then is that we made another piece of content and it's something like copy this strategy, it'll blow up your business, right? That piece of content drove over $48,000 in 30 days, right? It only had 40,000 views, right? So one piece of content, if you didn't have the right infrastructure in place, you'd be like, we just got to make more of that. The other piece of content, right? About 10% of the views, but like 10 times more cash flow. And you'd never know that if you didn't have the right data infrastructure in place, right? So having the right links all set up, making sure everything's trackable, making sure you have a dashboard set up that tracks all this stuff so you can actually discern which content is driving real business results to your business.
You just hurt a lot of people's feelings. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of, they realize how inefficient so much
the
of their
only
stuff
thing that's
is.
true if you're getting to $1 million plus a month is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way around it.
Yeah. Why did that video make so little money?
Well, we can unpack this a bit more, right? I think when you're going and you're building your content strategy, you got to kind of think of things like you kind of have two pistons of an engine, and those two pistons are kind of growth-based content and then more like niche-based content, right? So you're going to have some content that's used to try and drive more audience to your page, get more awareness, make you more of a name out there, right? And it may be a little bit more broad. And then you have content that's more niche content, right? That's then pushing people through the funnel and showing that you're a real expert in what you do. And so the difference between those pieces in short is that the first one, right? Success is hard until you build systems like this, is more a piece of content that was built to kind of have a bigger TAM, right? A total addressable market, right? Whereas the latter piece, copy this business strategy to blow up your business, is more something for, a lower, more core audience, right? Someone that already has a business that's looking to now blow it up, that wants to use this system in it. It's a little bit more of a core audience than it is a new viewer, right? In any channel you're building, any content, you have your core casual and new, right? The first example there is more casual new. The latter example is more core, which is why it drew more cash flow.
You communicate like you want to use the phrasing puzzle. It seems like you've curated each of these pieces. You're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to try this and it's going to fit. Okay, let's go through the systematic structure of it. And I feel very convicted because I'm walking out of this conversation realizing that I'm making the mistake of perceiving myself as a creator. And even in the process of wanting to start my personal brand, of trying to start my personal brand, that it's really, really important, the terminology I use, the intentions behind the content, the intentions behind the packaging, and spending more time thinking overarchingly about what I'm trying to do. It's obvious you don't get to where you're at without a ton of intention on the front end. If people only watched one section of this podcast and they said, like, we wanted to walk away with something really, really crucial and core about why we're doing this in the first place. Maybe it's not just to monetize, but to build that life. Why is it worth it for everybody to consider going through these steps and getting to these levels? What is that light at the end of the tunnel with that freedom? Because I think that's a core part about why you do what you do and why you're so intense and why you're so systemized, that the freedom is really the goal. Why is it worth it to get to the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, so, we are all going to die, right? That is like one cold, hard truth, right? You have one life to live, right? And one of the worst feelings in life, right? We've all felt it probably at some point in time, is regret, right? And so how do you prevent regret, right? I think it's, looking at, yourself when you're 80, right? And looking back on your life now and going, what do you really have to lose, right? And what do you really even want? And I think oftentimes people are in this sort of need state, like, I need to do this thing now, or, they've got this kind of scarcity mindset that we've talked about, right? And what I think people need to start paying more attention to is like, what do you really want out of this, right? And be just unabashed, like be real with yourself and be, selfish, right? Like, what do you actually want out of life and what do you want out of your business? And then go and get it, right? There's this concept, right? Like 10x is easier than 2x, right? And the same thing goes in all of these stages, right? If you just want to aim for stage 1, then you're just going to get stage 1, right? But if you really want stage 5, right, you're going to get stage 5, right? It's like, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And so I think it's just taking time to take a step back for a second, going and thinking about, where do you want to be over the next 10 years? Just jot down some notes. Where do you want to be over a year? Where do you want to be, in the next 90 days, right? And then what does that mean over the next 30, right? And then go and put that in front of where you work every single day, right? From there, really just going, and now that you're clear on where you want to go, right? Hopefully having enough fire inside you to get through the pain, the struggle, the agony that's bound to come up as you're moving through these stages, but being able to also then remind yourself of why you're even doing it in the first place.
What's your goal? Where do you want to get to? Are you guys content? You're saying you want to scale this. You took some time off. You thought about stuff. What's the next level for you?
Yeah, there's no like next level. To me, it's like these days, every single year, when it comes to like business, my goal is like, I just want to have another 2025, but just be better. It's nothing drastic, right? And I think from just focusing on what we're doing now and just being the best in the world at it, amazing things will happen. And so, I have dreams of getting our YouTube content onto a streaming platform. I have dreams of starting a retreat center for founders in the Italian Dolomites, right? A place for epic experiences with just legendary founders. I have dreams of, creating this like Apple for founders, right? Amazing creativity, something that people can identify with, and this amazing curated community and simple systems that founders can use where, whether it's getting help implementing their offer and helping them evolve it, whether it's helping them with landing pages and VSLs and helping them make sure that everything from when people first see them on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the way through to when they convert and join their community, that whole flow, that customer life cycle in their company and their product is delightful, right? And it's something that allows that individual founder to get to where they're really looking to go with their company at the end of the day. And so, for me, the long-term vision really is to inspire 100 million founders to go and accomplish their dreams, right? With proven, simple, like elegant systems. And I think as we continue to scale, it's just making it more easy for founders, helping them go and implement these things faster, and really helping them also just connect with other founders, because the journey can get a little lonely, and it's always good to have people alongside you that have your back, and are willing to roll up their sleeves to make sure that the journey is a little more joyful.
If you could say something to the version of you that wasn't sober, that was struggling, that was feeling lonely, that was feeling visionless, and that was looking for an outlet, that was desperate for an outlet to replace the negative things that you were doing in your life. If you could say something to yourself now, what would you say?
Find a coach. Yeah. That was actually what a doctor had told me when I kind of gone at my breaking point and saying, like, I got to figure this out, was just find a coach. And I ended up trialing a few different coaches. And after a 1-month trial, went with the one that I liked the best. His name's Ryan Begelman. And Ryan completely transformed my life. And so I think at the end of the day, the difference between like a coach, let's say, and like a mentor or a peer or an advisor is that, to me, a coach is someone that's meeting with you regularly, say every other week, holding you accountable, really almost equally invested in your success, right? And really kind of keeping track of where you're at and making sure you're progressing. And I hadn't had that up until that point in life. And that was really an inflection moment for me.
Are you proud of yourself?
100%.
How do I develop that skill of being proud of myself?
I mean, I think it's just taking some time to reflect on what you've accomplished and what you've overcome, even if it's stuff that's not business related, or it's small things that could seem like sometimes insignificant if you're being hard on yourself, right? It's, you got to be kind to yourself at the end of the day. And I think there's a concept, from Ray Dalio, it's like pain plus reflection equals progress. I think that the key thing there is, like, most people don't take time to reflect. And so that's why I've talked about this personal board meeting, right? And this exercise of every single month, dedicating just even 30 minutes, right? What went well, what didn't go well, and what did I learn? I can tell you, I go through most months, and my like default state, like sometimes is like, I'm not insanely proud, right? Like we all have those moments, right? We're like, are we really doing anything big, or, what's really going on here, right? And if I take, though, a second to step back and just journal around that, or even just type it out, it's like, oh, no, there's so much good stuff going on, right? We just lose track of it so fast. I feel like our attention spans are just getting shorter and shorter, and we just forget, like, you just even forget, reflect on the last 30 days, like, you suddenly, if you literally think about it, you're like, oh, whoa, like I flew here to do this and I got that thing done and we posted this thing that was amazing. And I learned that from that guy. It's like, oh, okay. We just don't give ourselves a space though for that. And sometimes that's then what causes us to start tripping up into sort of negativity.
Thank you so much. I'm going to stop right there. I just really appreciate you. I think there's not a single person that hasn't walked away feeling like, oh, there's a gap between how I feel and Matt just showed me what I need to do to get over that feeling. I can feel a different state. I can identify with something different. And there's a tactical, like that was my goal in the initial, I think I stated in the initial part of the podcast, is like, I know better, me personally. I'm walking through this and I'm like, here's the gap with how I'm approaching my content. Here's the gap with how I'm approaching how to monetize my content. And here's the gap in how I'm approaching myself and my identity. And you just gave me a few different systems I'm really excited to implement. So I just want to say thank you. And I really hope that, other people feel the same way I feel. So
let's go.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.